Washing away like that.
That's the last night. You can pick any night you'd like. The mayor's doing Friday night. We're doing it on multiple nights. Done?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
No attendance.
Hey. We just have to. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I saw you coming empty-handed. I've never seen that before. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's impossible.
Not in a few words.
I'll ask you afterwards. She's good, good.
We don't know the relationship.
It's okay.
I don't care as long as mine's right.
Yeah, right.
How can that be? Somebody yells at you, you don't care if it's the wrong name.
Yeah.
Come on.
The mics are live.
Hey, Rick.
Hello. I'm worried. I see a lot of pitchforks and torches. I get that at home. I get it here too. Oops, sorry. All right. You make as much room as you need, Doris.
The mics
We'll
are live.
adjust to you. No, most of you. No, you. Mike's right. Hey, can I remind everybody, the mics are hot right now, so if you say something bad about the mayor, it will get picked up and go out over the internet, which you may want. But anyhow, just be advised, even if you're whispering back there, they do get picked up here. So be real careful with that. All right, apologies for being late. We don't like to start meetings late. We had a couple of interviews and we had some things to do tonight in regards to the flooding and all that. So I apologize, but why don't we go ahead and get started? If you can stand, face the flag, and we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. This is our first meeting with our interim village clerk, Doris Wickizer. So I finally ran Jean Mahoney out of here after 29 years. It only took me 2 years, and she was finally like, all right, I'm done, I'm out. So Jean left us after 29 years. Doris is doing a great job, but we're still working out some kinks with some things. And obviously this week, from a week ago Sunday, has been interesting, and we'll talk about that at length tonight. But let me go ahead and get started, first of all, and open the meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to open the July 17th business meeting / work session of the village board. May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so what we've done, and this has been our policy probably for about the last decade, is we combined the July and the August work sessions and business meetings. So we have a lot to get through tonight. We'll try to move through it because I know there's some people that want to speak tonight and we want to make sure that we hear everybody. So to start out, we're going to do public comment. Here's how public comment works. It's a 3-minute limit. I generally let people go on as long as they are advancing the ball and they're not using pejoratives or slurs or anything like that. I'll give you as much time as it takes to make your point, as long as it's reasonable. You just step up to the mic. We ask that you state your name and give us your residence. So would anybody like to speak publicly? There'll be 2 opportunities for this, before the meeting agenda and then at the end of the meeting tonight. Yes, sir, Mr. Joya.
Hello, all. Rick Joya, Hudson Street in the Village. I guess I would say that even when there's a tragedy, as we had last week with our storm, in many ways in life, there always seems to be a silver lining if you can look for it and find it. And one thing that I can say that's positive that came out of the devastation was the fact that we now have blissfully quiet streets, for the most part. Very loud vehicles are starting to figure workarounds, but I'm here to speak about the Sleep Act, which was passed by the New York legislature and was enacted into law by Governor Hochul on August 1st of 2022. It's very explicit, and it talks about prohibiting loud vehicles that have had aftermarket modifications made to their exhaust systems. So SLEEPS is the acronym, Stop Loud and Excessive Exhaust Pollution. It has very concrete parameters about how loud things can be, and I think that there are just gross violations. And it's not just in the Village. You know, this is happening obviously everywhere, but we have the tool to do something about it. And I would like to see us exercise that tool. I'd like to see us make it really unpleasant for people who are making it unpleasant for us within the law. And we have the law. And I would like to see it enforced. It's just egregious. It's so loud. And I think the loudness is culturally the point. I think that's really what they're trying to do. They're trying to flip everybody the bird, society at large. And I would say as a village, we need to say we're not having it. And we're going to stand up and make it really difficult. And I think we have the tools, and we have a police department that should be able to devote manpower. And even if it's only, you could just pick a Sunday. It doesn't have to be 24/7. Just pick a Sunday for starters. I mean, it's like picking low-hanging fruit. Not so much now with the road closed, but I can tell you that there are heinously loud motorcycles going up and down mountain. So people know that I've been raising this as an issue, and so I've become the cipher for this stuff, and people are calling me, and these are Village residents. So I considered maybe going to the petition stage. I haven't really done that yet because I wanted to just address it to the board first. But it's a real issue for villagers, and they really feel that they're being abused by this noise. And as I said, we have the tool. Thank you.
What I appreciate, Mr. Joya, is, as I say to everybody, Mr. Joya came to me first and said, hey, I want to talk about this. This is something that's important and that I've been receiving complaints about. And I appreciate him coming out tonight to talk to the board about this. I will say this. I know that there are certain standards, and I don't want to get out over my skis because the code enforcement officer is here and he'll check me on that. But motorcycles, one of the purposes of loud pipes is to let people know when somebody's coming through an intersection. But I know what you're talking about with the troop of cars. Now, 218 now is going to be closed, at least in my mind, for the next 2 years, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we do get a lot of on Sundays and Saturdays, and it was something when they used to come in when the Hudson Street Cafe was on Hudson Street, and they'd come and have lunch there, and they park their vehicles. I don't want to smear or slur any car. As you know, I'm a Jeep guy. Generally speaking, young kids with Subarus, and they don't have mufflers on their vehicles, and the vehicles are very loud. I know the chief stopped in. Did he already step back out? Chief, where are you? Oh, I'm sorry, right in front of me. I know. Chief, what are some of the things that we can do on that? I know in New York City it's gotten lax of late, but in the old days, and when I talk about the old days, the early 90s, if you had a loud vehicle, you got pulled over by the NYPD and you got cited. How do we handle that? Is it a noise meter? I mean, what is the policy? If we hear somebody coming down the street. But how do we determine that? What's loud to me may not be loud to some 17-year-old. How do we determine that?
Well, I guess it cause substantial inconvenience to the public.
But with other municipalities, let me back up and ask you this, Chief. Do other municipalities, I'm assuming, who have enforced this, must have some sort of noise meter? Because as Rick is pointing out, if you'd set up on a Sunday, because I live on Hudson Street and I hear them coming down too, Rick. You're pulling them over. I mean, sooner or later you have to cite them, and if you're going to cite someone, you got to have something to back it up. So I guess my question is are you aware of any other municipalities that use that enforce it, use a noise meter to do that, decibel level?
I can petition other.
Yeah, maybe if you take a look, I think it could be the crawl, walk, run stage where you're doing the first one is a warning, and then the next one is.
Joe, what was the judge who famously said he knew what pornography was? He couldn't describe it, but if he saw it, he knew what it was. That's Law School 101. But is this the same thing where we know what something loud and abusive is? And I know what Rick's talking about. You want to name the
It's been an awful long time
justice?
since I had that case in law school, I gotta tell you.
It wasn't Justice Brandeis, but I know it was some justice.
Later than that.
But what are our mechanisms there? Manny, Rockland County, are you familiar with how they handle that down in Rockland County?
I'm not aware of any enforcement of that in Rockland County.
Yeah. Like I said, I know back in the 90s, the NYPD cracked down on it and pulled people over.
So you look into it.
So
Yeah,
I'll
we-
do it. Sir?
But the fact remains, as of late 2022, we have what we didn't have in the 90s. We
Sleep-
have a law, and the law wasn't written for Cornwall on Hudson. It was written because a lot of people in New York State are PO'd about this, and they realize that it's passed. And we're talking about, you're saying, yes, motorcycles come with a certain inherent amount of noise. Not talking about that. I'm talking about I'm talking about modifications that are made to vehicles. And can't just single out the cars, because the motorcycles, some of them are beyond belief. So
Yep.
let's not slant it one way or the other. They're equal opportunity offenders. They're both going at it, and there's this thing called the decibel meter, and there's a number, and you can't exceed that number. So in terms of what do you call loud, it's not relative. It's a number. It's quantifiable. It is scientific. That's all.
But on the other side of the coin, you have a manufacturer like Harley Davidson, which prides themselves on, these selling bikes with loud exhaust from the factory.
I think they're actually within that threshold.
Yeah, they are.
They're within that threshold, because I know a Harley noise, and I listen to Harleys all the time. I know what that is. I accept that. That's not what I'm talking about here, and I think we all know what I'm talking about. So let's not kind of bandy about the push there. We're talking about people who are cutting off they're doing straight pipe exhaust. They're doing
Modified
like,
exhaust.
egregious noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rick, I don't think, I'm getting the feeling you think that we don't want to enforce this. It is the law. This is the first time it's come up.
Yes.
So obviously, I haven't read the law yet. You just brought it up. I did not know it was passed. So the next thing is Chief looks at it. If we have to buy the instrument, then we do that, the meter, the noise meter, and then we go from there. So, but first we've got to take a look at the law. But we're not dismissing you. I don't want you to think that, no, we're looking for an excuse to exempt this person or this vehicle. This is,
And Rick, I agree with you on this, and we'll have Joe take a look at it as well. And we're entering an era where we're trying to ask our police to do less because we want less enforcement. When I say less, New York State, and now this puts police officers, which I'm in 100% agreement with you, with now having another reason to pull somebody over. And that comes with a whole host of other things. That's not an excuse. I'll talk to the chief, I'll talk to Joe. You did send me that act, I'll share it with the trustees, make sure we take a look at it. Sometimes we pass these laws and we figure out, well, how are we gonna enforce it? And that's the tough thing, but we'll take a look at it. I know what you're talking about, and I wasn't dismissing it about Harleys per se, because you're right. And we know the cars that come through here, and usually when they're coming on 218 on a weekend and they're rolling in here, they've all got no mufflers, and it's interminable. That's the right word for it. So, all right, we'll definitely take a look at it. All right, yes, ma'am, Ms. Gazda.
I just want to take a minute to Barbara Gosda. Just want to take a minute
State your home address.
19 Homeland. I absolutely agree with what Rick has said, because I walk on Hudson Street, and sometimes I say to myself, where am I? Because the noise is so loud. You can't talk to somebody, you have a break in your conversation, and sometimes it's a big truck that's coming down the street, whatever. But sometimes it's intentional. It's somebody's done something to a vehicle, and they're just, total disregard for the community. They don't respect us. They don't live here very often. I think this is important.
Thank you. Agreed. All right. Okay, since all of River Avenue is sitting on the right-hand side of the courtroom here, who is whoa, all right, Rob, I didn't say I forgot. All right. Since all of River Avenue is here, who is going to be the first spokesperson? Mrs. Kirshner, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kirshner, 19 River Avenue. So good evening. My husband and Rob and I have lived on River Avenue since 1989. I recently wrote an email to the mayor and the chief of police regarding the speeding, reckless driving, and yes, you can guess it, the loud cars and motorcycles. Over the years, we have asked other administrations to address these problems, but our requests have been ignored. My husband and I have had two very close calls recently with the same person nearly hitting our cars because of speeding and reckless driving. I appreciate that Chief Dixon timely responded to the situation, but however, the problem is continuous. My neighbors and myself can tell you countless stories and situations that we have seen on our street that could have resulted in serious accidents. We cannot back out of our driveways without being a chance of being hit. We cannot walk down our street without fear of a car jumping the sidewalk or hitting us on the side of the road. Once a car begins at either end of River Avenue, it's a race. It's a race. Stop signs are merely a suggestion at the top and the bottom of the street. Speed signs are completely ignored. I could go on and on about the situation, but my goal tonight is to let the mayor and the board know that real solutions could be found before someone gets seriously hurt. First and foremost is speed. Although the speed limit is 25, it's ignored. My proposal would be to change the speed limit to 20, making River Avenue from the last bend by Phil's house up the road part of the school zone. The yards on those properties back to the schoolyard. Extend your school zone out onto River Avenue.
So for the length of the playground, essentially,
Correct.
the backside.
Have a three-way stop at River and Spruce, and make Spruce one way from Prospect to River, as that road is too narrow for two cars and there is limited sight distance. Put an additional stop sign on the left of River Avenue at the top. The other sign is tucked on the sidewalk. These signs are there and you can't see them. In addition to that, those stop signs, if you put two and then the one coming out of the municipal lot, they should be flashing stop signs. We visited many municipalities, my husband and I. We're at a big intersection. Not only is it a red stop sign, but the perimeter flashes. Here we go. Remove the last parking space by the gazebo near the crosswalk. The crosswalk is in a vulnerable spot between parked cars. You cannot see someone, especially a child, in that before they start onto the crosswalk as you're going north on Hudson. And more importantly, you cannot see traffic on River as you approach the top coming south. So I also brought pictures. During school hours, which should include the middle school kids walking to and from school, which is early, because that's when I'm out, a police officer or crossing guard should be placed at the top of River and Hudson to direct traffic out of the lot and let the children safely cross rivers as cars exit the lot and go either up or down River. I've seen numerous close calls there too. We have kids that walk up the street to get that bus in the morning. There's nobody around, and the cars are flying by them. It's very scary. Another suggestion, speed cameras placed on the telephone pole right across from our house. One up, one looking down. That's where the speeding occurs. It occurs at the bottom as you come up, and then it's the minute they hit that bend, it's all hell breaks loose. And the same thing coming down. The sign on the edge of by Bill's, somebody hit that. That's gone, by the way.
Which sign is that?
The one that's looks it's like the curve.
The curvy road sign?
Yeah.
Got it.
And the speed limit sign going down that says 25 is covered in vines, so you can't read that either. More patrols during the peak hours, which is 6:30 in the morning to 9:30, and again in the evening from approximately 3:30 to 6. With the patrols just not at the top and the bottom of the street. We've made the suggestion. We are more than happy, and my neighbor across the street, you can sit in my drive. I'm more than happy to move my car. More than happy. Our quality of life is truly affected by the speeding. Unfortunately, it's just not our street. All roads in the village seem to have the same situation. As Barbara, my husband and I walk all over the village, and it's truly disheartening that we have accepted that this type of driving is okay. We really have. All we hear is about moving Cornwall forward, making this a tourist destination. But we're losing sight of the fact that the village, sorry, I have to read it.
Go ahead.
Can't control the current traffic situation. How can we need a means of fixing this present traffic situation before we can move forward. If people come into this town and they think there's no rules, they're going to do whatever they want. And that's what's going on. The loud cars, the speeding. I'm not saying it's all out of town people, because it's not. Because I see many people dropping their kids off in the morning and they're on a mission to get wherever they need to go. And the same thing in the afternoon. And it's scary. And it's their own kids that are at that school. And it's the middle school kids walking to and from that bus stop. Can we please make this a priority? We have two choices. We either going to be proactive or reactive. And I really hope that we're proactive, because I would truly, truly hate to see something seriously happen to someone or their kids. And I really think that we can find solutions to do this without putting it off any longer. 30 plus years, many neighbors have been there even longer than us and have endured it. And there's been nothing done except a few stop signs and a speed limit sign that nobody obeys. That's it.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere. All right, I'm going to get to you. Give me 1 second. I got to address a couple of these. And this sounds so cliche when I go, I feel your pain, living on Wood Avenue. I feel your pain because we're the route to the river, and we're the route for the proms, and I feel your pain. Having said that, the one thing in my 2 years as mayor that we've been able to do regarding traffic control devices took us almost a year to get approved, and that was putting a three-way stop at the top of Willis and Weeks, right around the corner from the building here, and getting that done. And this isn't an excuse. This is going to take a process, and any sign that you change, there are some signs that the village can put up. I can talk to Dave, and as long as the village board votes to approve it, we can do it. There are certain signs, traffic control devices, that we have to get New York State DOT to approve. Having said that, you mentioned a flashing stop sign. I know what you're talking about. Dave, do we have any of those in the village? I don't think so. What, we do have those in the village?
Yeah, right by the park.
Flashing stop signs?
Well, it's flashing yellow.
No, I'm talking about a stop sign that's like outlined and it's like flashes. It's got like red beacons, like what Ms. Kirshner is talking about to get your attention, because the one that she's talking about at the intersection of River, Idlewild, Hudson, that one right there, when you have cars parked there, they're parked to go to Pepitini's or Storm King Lounge, you don't see it. I know that when Mr. Kirshner came to see me a year or so ago about the parking space at the corner of the bandstand, the corner of Hudson Street and River, and I was reticent, I was reluctant, because everything right now is trying to be pro-business and we don't want to take away parking spaces. I've seen enough, and I will ask the board to look at this, because is one parking space going to mean the difference between a business surviving or not surviving in the village? But how difficult it is when I see people, especially during bandstand concerts, walking across that crosswalk and nobody sees them as they're turning into them and accidents almost happen. That is something that I am amenable to. Does anybody on the board, Dave, from your perspective, anybody have any issues or pushback? Because I'm happy to go talk to every business owner. The restaurants are the most important ones that would be impacted, and say it just makes sense from a public safety standpoint to remove that parking space. That seems like low-hanging fruit. Thoughts?
No, I agree.
require state.
And that does not require, we don't need any approval for that. That is a village board decision to remove a parking space, correct? And then we just, what, stripe it with yellow lines, put a triangle there? Okay.
Stop sign at the end of River Avenue, though, is a state-controlled stop sign, not a village.
At the bottom.
No, at the top.
What do you mean by?
On Hudson, because it's 218,
On
right,
218.
right.
Avenue, Duncan Avenue.
Yeah.
Those are state-maintained stop signs.
Now, I'll say this, and Dave has told me that, but we have maintained them in this sense, because when they were bent and you couldn't see them, and I drove up and said, you can't even see the stop sign, our guys went there, pulled it out, reset it with Quikrete, and faced it forward, but we do not own those. Now, what would it take to put a flashing stop sign there? Is that something that we could do? Is that something that requires New York State DOT approval?
You have to get a hold of DOT and talk to their engineering.
Sir?
While we're working on that with the state, can you also maybe print the word stop in front of the big white stripe that's
At the top of River?
or even
Yeah,
all
'cause
the.
that's our street.
If I can. All the roads we're talking about, Rob Kirshner, 19 River.
19 River. Rob Kirshner,
Yes.
19 River.
I'm gonna add one thing, if I can give you this picture.
Sure.
But first on that, we've seen a lot of places where you have the word stop in big white letters right with the stripe
Yep.
and the stop sign. So maybe with that,
That's our part of the road.
That
That's
is.
our part of the road.
right.
So we own the
That's just
roadway there, Dave,
also-
correct? Is that
Before the
something that we
crosswalk,
could
we
do?
It's an option.
Okay. Does that just require board approval? I mean, obviously, we would want to consult with you. Who would we have to go through for that?
It's a village road, we can do it.
With respect to the, Mr. Kirshner, with respect to the three-way stop sign, after that you suggested one way. Are you suggesting one way going towards this, going back towards the,
You're talking Spruce.
excuse me, Spruce?
Towards Homeland.
The spruce
Toward-
extension there.
Yes.
From Prospect to River.
Yes.
I would say it should be, you should come from Prospect to River, but not be able to turn off of River onto Spruce. Yes, no, anybody?
So not making the right coming up River onto Spruce.
Because
Right.
it's so limited there.
Yeah,
One-way
because the
coming down.
sight line you're saying is limited.
Yes.
Right.
It's that, these are some additional pictures.
Right.
Yeah, no, I go
Yeah.
I've all the time. I've come off there recently
That's
too,
the
and
where
it's,
they're talking about people
Yeah.
walking in front of them.
I mean, one way or the other, but it's very dangerous because it's too narrow there. You cannot fit two cars. I don't even know I don't even know how, the garbage truck doesn't even go that way.
All right, let me do this, because everything, it has to start somewhere. Let me commit to going with the DPW superintendent and looking at Spruce, Prospect, River there. I know what you're talking about. I've driven it a million times, but let me go walk that with him and take a look at that and see what we can do. I don't know what from the dais right now I can tell you, yeah, we can do this, or no, we can't do that. Let me commit to this. If the board is in agreement on this right now, I'm happy to take that parking space away. Doing that, I will have business owners that will be upset about that, but I'm happy to play the, yes,
Well,
Louis not gonna complain, but what about other ones?
what other ones are there, though?
Well, I mean,
don't know.
you've got Momo's place across the street.
Momo's
You've
not
got,
gonna complain.
right, but I'm
Momo-
saying, but,
But here's, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was going to push my luck here tonight and ask for those first 2 parking spots to be taken.
take with
because-
one hand, not with two,
No, no,
Mr. Met.
no,
Take with
hey,
one
listen,
hand, not with two.
If I'm here, I'm going to ask for what I can ask for.
Got it.
I think both those spots are bad.
On
because-
either side of the crosswalk.
Of the crosswalk,
Okay.
right. Because if you're trying to cross that crosswalk from the bandstand over, you got to peek around a parked car to see if something's coming. All right? It's just as bad.
So let me commit to this.
Right.
I will walk that with Dave tomorrow. I will commit, so long as this board is in agreement, and I'm looking at nodding heads, everybody agree that one parking space there on the corner, we should take that away.
Yeah,
Mr.
we did it
Kirshner's
on
point,
Cherry.
the second one is the one that blocks the view of the crosswalk.
Right. When
So if
those-
you're gonna remove one to allow better visibility down River Avenue, the one behind it is the one that you actually can't see if somebody's coming out between
Right.
2 parked cars.
Yeah, but
both-
To me-
then
I
what
would-
about
Right.
the one on the Duncan side? I mean,
I would
Well,
say,
it's a bad intersection.
well, we know
I
that.
mean, I know, and really, what we could have asked for tonight was stop signs all over the place in that intersection, because you can't come out of Duncan even.
All right, so you have a sympathetic board.
Right.
We will go look at that tomorrow. I'll reach back out after I walk it with the DPW superintendent. I'll reach back out to the board and we'll make an assessment on it. I think I want to see the second one. I know which one you're talking about and I hear your argument, but I can't start wiping out spots all along Hudson Street there with the businesses. And I get it. 2 spots is not wiping out all the spots, but let me just take a look at it. I think that we are at a space where it makes sense to remove at least one, and I'll take a look at both. Is that fair? All right.
I would add, just, you know, the inventory of proposed alterations that you brought, I would love to see that, so that we could include it as an overall review of the whole
Can
street.
we
I
get
mean,
a
the
copy
issue
of those
is-
suggestions, what Bill's talking about?
Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because what I'd like to do is follow up. I don't know what the state law allows, or I can have this copy? Yeah. All right, awesome. I don't know what they allow in regards to alterations to stop signs, or if there are different variations of stop signs that we could put one there. The stop painted across there, I'll walk it with Dave again tomorrow, and if it makes sense, I'll talk to the board. That makes sense to me, and that seems like if it's something within our control, we can do. I mean, we're not gonna be able to do everything, but at least do something as we move forward.
Well, I think that's what we're asking for, really, is let's get a couple of things that make it safer.
Yeah.
On River,
Yeah.
at the intersection of Hudson and Idlewild and River and Duncan. There's got to be some things we can do to at least alleviate some of the issue. And going forward, if we ever meet again like this, maybe there are other
With
things
all of
we'll
River
think of.
Avenue here
Yes.
and here.
Yes.
I didn't forget you.
Chief, does the, who controls the school zone? Is that SED, is that state, is that us? If you were to change a school zone, who has the parameters for that?
Depends what road it falls upon. Obviously Hudson Street would be the state. And, I would have to check, I would probably have to check with, maybe even the school superintendent to find out.
Okay.
But I guess my question, Ms. Kirshner, and you probably already know this answer, and that is, if you do extend that, what does that get you? Because if you lower the speed limit already, it's at 25, if you lowered it to 20 as you suggested.
Right.
By expanding the footprint, what in addition does that get you?
Well, we're trying to get people to slow down.
Right.
Maybe if it's part of the school zone, additional signage can be put on River that says school zone,
Flashing
20,
lights.
yeah.
Oh, that, yeah,
flashing,
yeah.
20 miles an
Yeah.
hour.
I would think so.
I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
you guys are there, I mean.
Are the penalties stricter in a school zone,
Yeah, the
Joe?
children's
Yes.
park is
Yeah.
up
Yes.
Yeah, right there.
Yes.
That changes everything.
Right, so it's a little more visual.
Just another comment. I'm Andrea Hamburger from 46 River. I would ask that anyone here try to drive down River Avenue at 25 miles an hour all the way down.
Without breaking.
Without braking.
Right.
You cannot do it.
Halfway down,
No,
you're going too
you
fast.
cannot, well, safely, you know?
Right.
It is not a safe road to drive on at 25 miles an hour. It should be lowered. The speed limit all the way down should be lowered.
Dave, is that something that requires New York State approval for us to reduce the speed limit?
You have to hold a public hearing.
Yep.
To change the local law,
I thought that's what we're doing.
and then it has to be filed with the state before we can make the change.
Got it. Okay.
Test drive, everybody.
No, I know what you're talking about. Okay, so the four things that jumped out at me, and Mrs. Kirshner, I'll take a look at this, I'll make a copy of this for all the trustees, and we'll make this part of the record. The four things that jumped out at me that I feel like are action items that we can do. I will look into the flashing stop sign. I don't know if that's possible, but I'll look into that. The last parking space and the one prior to that, Dave and I will walk that tomorrow. We'll take a look at that. I'll get back with the board on that. I think one, absolutely. I'll take a look at the second. More patrols, chief, in the morning, generally speaking, because I'm down there by COH Elementary School, we have a police officer generally at the crosswalk. Do we need to reposition a police officer and put him on River at that crosswalk?
Well, I get complaints a lot of times, especially with the school buses.
People going around the school buses, right?
Going around the school buses as they're stopped at front of COH. So many times I put an officer there as a deterrent. And also the officer was there to assist the other crossing guard that's there as well. Obviously because of high line of pedestrian traffic that occurs there in the morning and the afternoon hours.
Chief, what about a decoy? What about putting one of our cars on River at the top, unmanned, and then having a police officer in another vehicle back at the firehouse where they normally are?
We can try that.
I mean, I'm just,
Is there a way to hire like some part-time traffic control agents even that can be stationed at some of these higher traffic areas at the correct time in the correct spot that maybe aren't police officers assigned to patrol, but they're specifically assigned to these duties of noise, speed, recklessness at this spot,
you're
and
talking
that
about like
spot.
brownies in New York City.
Something like that, that's their specific task. That's what their job is, to control it, to pull people over, to cite them, to warn them, whatever the case may be. But if when you hear we only have one officer assigned to patrol for each shift,
Yeah.
well, okay, then we need something else for enforcement, because without enforcement, nothing's going to happen.
It has to be a police officer, it can't be a peace officer.
Yeah, no,
What you're referring to.
Yeah.
is a peace officer.
to make vehicle
Police
stops and
officers
things
are
like
only-
that.
They're the only ones that be allowed to just,
Make a stop.
Enforce traffic infractions. Rick?
New York City has school zone speed cameras.
Mhm.
There's a speed zone on the West Side Highway. And if you go 35 miles an hour, you're gonna get a ticket.
Yeah.
I know, because I've gotten a ticket.
Yeah.
And it just comes in the mail. And there doesn't
Yeah.
even have to be a cop.
That's it.
It just comes in the mail, it's automatic ticketing, and it might be a source of revenue for the village, who knows, but,
Well,
but as
that-
it relates to
yeah.
the school zones,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
that has already been done
Okay.
all over New York.
Yeah.
All over.
All right.
I think
That's what it is.
Well, I mean, you gotta.
Well, but we need to live somehow. We can't live the way we're living. And if a speed camera is going to help people slow down,
I think the potential of
well, things are changing, and
Okay.
people are just speeding recklessly around
All right,
town.
let me get a couple of,
Go ahead.
Rob,
All right,
thank you. All right, ma'am, go ahead. Go ahead.
Martha McMaster, 41 River Ave.
Thank you.
And I've addressed with letters and correspondence of different types this very issue since I've lived on River Ave. And I would say that there have been efforts made I would not say nothings, but I'm sorry, you can hear I'm not
No, it's okay. Take your
public
time.
speaker,
Take-
but
you're doing
still
great.
have I want to communicate a view that I have.
Okay.
Things have been done, but these speeders, these noisy cars, they're not all from somewhere else. They're repeat offenders. They live in this community. They have parents that know that they have these cars. Their parents drive down River Ave looking at their cell phones, going too fast. 25 miles an hour is too fast.
Yep.
But if you're paying attention, you will probably navigate your way from the top to the bottom where you know to stop, going 25 miles an hour and not hit somebody. I think the parking spot that we've all been wondering about by the gazebo, that's really an angle situation. It's not that businesses are going to be affected. When you pull up to the top where you're supposed to stop, you really still can't see what's coming down Hudson.
Mhm.
So it's a matter of safety. It's not, well,
Yep.
did I get to the restaurant on time? Well, no, I hit somebody.
Yeah.
It's really, the angle is very awkward. So you have to not only stop, but you have to go very gingerly. That's an old-fashioned word. My mother used it. Go very gingerly. Look both Idlewild, Hudson, and who knows where else a few times, and then go. It didn't help some years back when, that cafe outside sidewalk dining also impacted the sight distance. But anyhow, I just think we have to take responsibility. If you're going to drive a car, it's a weapon if you're not driving safely. And we could ask the inspection stations to check these cars when they annually get inspected in New York State. Well, is something modified with that muffler? Well, that's illegal now. So that's one way you could, but you can't probably pull over the kid and say, oh, that was really noisy, I felt like throwing my rake out at people outside, say, what the hell are you doing? Why? This is our piece. But I don't want cameras all over the place either.
Yeah.
So, but I would say we've had the wavy, curvy road sign. That was something. The 25 mile an hour sign was something. It could be lower. But if you don't teach your kids or you don't police yourself when you're driving, who cares if the light stop sign? Who doesn't know what a stop sign looks like and what it means? Do we really need a flashing one? Do we really need to have a strip that says stop? Stop means stop, but
Right.
so it's a responsibility. I mean, these are a few cars. These are, you mentioned, I'm sorry, I apologize. I dry mouth, everything.
okay.
I get nervous.
That's
but
all right.
It sort of burned me up because I think, it's the same. Now they're sneakers. You don't even have to bend down to put them on. Well, we have to do some things still in this world.
Good
We
point.
can't just,
Yep.
and I think if we have the curvy road sign, that was enacted in the last or prior to your administration, then what does that mean? Well, we all know what it means. So
Yep.
I think we have to take responsibility. We have to lower speed limits where they can be. We have to keep the signs clear without the vines. We have to talk to our kids, talk to our whoever it might be that's just going too fast.
Yep.
Or doesn't stop to pull out. You know, I've tried to pull out of my drive and people come along, then they give me the finger.
No, very rude.
So I don't know, I guess that's just a sign of getting older or something. The longer you live, the more people are.
From somebody pulling out.
Or a motorcycle once tried to go around me when I had my blinker on to
Yep.
turn. You know, that's just stupidity. I don't know how you enforce that.
Thank you for that. I just got a couple other people I want to get to, but every point that you made, and I think it's important to also understand, if you look at old photographs and old paintings of the village square, this was a great wide road, and we modified it and remediated it to make it work for modern roadways, and we're trying to make that work. Look at the complaints we get all the time about Duncan Avenue and the fact that how do you come down Duncan Avenue without somebody whipping around Hudson Street? Most of us that live here know that you got to slow down there because somebody could be coming down, but people out of town don't. I'm
sorry, just there was always, and it's bugged me too, the idea of safety around that intersection. The concerts are wonderful. It's a wonderful feature of our village. But if you have a little toddler or a 6-year-old and you're there, they're probably not there by themselves, but they're running along the top of the stone wall. So if you're coming and which has happened to me, you turn down, you got to think, gee, I hope that little kid is going to stay up on that wall. Where's the parent?
Yeah.
So
Good point.
it's a wonderful thing that we have.
Yep.
This is a wonderful village, but we all have to take responsibility.
Well said on that note, ma'am. Thank you. And I think there was one more woman that wanted to say something in the back. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. All right. Yes, ma'am. Can you just step up to the microphone, ma'am, and state your name and your address, please, for the record?
Sure. Susan Galliardo Aquisto, 17 River Avenue. And I have a question to start, and I think I know the answer because it hasn't been brought up, and I'm sure the Kirshners are very thorough, and I'm sure they may know the answer. But speed bumps, because I understand what everybody's saying, and I may offend some people, but I just don't think that society has the idea of right and wrong that other generations did. And I think you can put stop signs, you can put stop in the road, you can have flashing lights, but there's going to be some people that just aren't, they just don't take any attention to that.
Before you go on, and I'm going to give you a chance to finish, Dave, we spoke about, there were a couple other neighborhoods that had complained and wanted speed bumps. You would think that's just a matter of us going out there and pouring asphalt. It's not. What does it take for us to get an approved speed bump?
There's certain widths and it's not like putting the speed bumps on Lee Road School.
Okay.
You can't do that, or Adams parking lot, because it's a traveled road, so you have to have it.
Yeah.
Meadow Hill Development, if you go up on Meadow Hill, they have speed humps up there, if you drive through there.
Yeah, like
They're about 8 feet wide, and they go up, so you're going over like a washboard.
Right, because I had heard at one time that because it's DOT or maybe state run, is that what that road is?
Do we need DOT approval from the state for that? I thought the last time we looked, there was some requirement.
Not on the village.
Okay.
Not on a village road.
There is also unintended consequences, just like anything else, which I was gonna start to say. You have large vehicles that travel that roadway, all the landscapers and stuff like that, and
Snow plows.
we're constantly getting calls and complaints about like a manhole. The truck goes over, it makes a bang noise. Put speed bumps on.
Well,
and listen to that at 2 o'clock in the morning when the roll-offs go by.
But there's very few trucks going up there at 2 in the morning. Very few.
On things, they're gonna be in somebody's window.
And so I propose, I mean, there are speed bumps and humps.
I'm okay with it.
Okay,
that-
all right, go ahead.
That are, and I understand, and I had heard once that it was about the snow plows. So there are those that you can bolt into the road and then unbolt them for the winter. And you're not going to have the drivers in the winter like you have in the summer or spring.
He's saying you can't do that on public roads. You can do that in Adams
Okay.
parking lot or in an apartment complex as private property. We can't do
so
that on public
okay,
roads.
so that answers my question. But I think we ought to still consider humps or bumps because I think that I've seen them. I think we were just recently in Saugerties and it was pretty much near the downtown and I think they were the humps because they were bigger. But the landscapers, in my opinion, will just have to slow down and they'll just have to ease over the hump or the bump. And I think that would be a beneficial addition to that street.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll get to you, sir. You're right after Ms. Connell.
So I'm Margot Connell, 21 River Avenue, and, I live next to the Kirshners, so we've been in cahoots talking about all this stuff, but I wanted to add two things. You worry about the parking, but we got a municipal we got a parking lot, so walk 10 feet and park, because when you guys put all those no parking signs in our whole entire perimeter, we all have one-car driveways, so where are we parking? Municipal lot when we have company. So you took away our parking spots. So we are technically taking away municipal parking because there's nowhere else to park. And so that's number one. Number two, I wanted to give you a little scenario. Rob and I were out on the porch talking back and forth, and a young gentleman came whooshing down the hill, and we started doing this. So he actually slowed down, and he stopped, and he's like, "What's the matter?" And we said, "You're going too fast." He goes, "Well, the speed limit's 30. We said, "No, it's 25. And he said, "Well, I was only doing 30. So I don't know what the limit is with the patrol. Thank you, we saw cops twice across the street, but I don't know where your limit is. 35's okay, we're not going to give you a ticket, or what? Because there's a reason why you don't speed through Fort Montgomery. There's a reason you don't speed through Tuxedo, and we all know it. So what's the problem? Because I'm sure they don't have it. Tuxedo has how many cops? I don't know. We have one, but they're send a message. You go 2 miles over the speed limit, give them a ticket. Because I have to brake check people going down river because I'll pull out of my driveway, nobody's coming down, but as soon as I pull to go down the hill, there's somebody right on my butt. And something's got to be done. And I know the officers were sitting there, but it wasn't peak times, it's rush hour. And the noisy cars, I could probably take pictures of, there's 2 cars that go up and down twice a day, wakes me up at 6 o'clock in the morning with the exhaust misfiring. There's one red one and there's one silver one. And a black one. We all know who they are. So, and so I'm retired. I like to sleep past 6, but they wake me up every morning. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do absolutely, we've been saying it for years, a 3-way stop at Spruce and River is going to make people stop. We can actually back out of our driveways. So that's it. That's all I have to say. So.
Okay, thank you. And I believe, sir, you wanted to say something. Just state your name for the record, sir, and your address.
David Prunier, 43 River Avenue.
Okay.
I live right next to Martha, agree 100% with what she said, and I agree with what she said, except try going down at 25 miles an hour without someone up your rear end. Right? You missed that part. Right? So the way it works, you come down, and I understand what everybody else said, so I'm not going to the top of the road. My problem is in the middle, right? I live on the second bend, the sharpest. I have the worst driveway because I can't see her up and down coming. And the villager, Department of Public Works does a great job with trying to trim things off that road. If they didn't do that, I would give up, right? And I have seen many times the police department put out the speed limit lights. The house at the bottom of the hill, they'll decoy or they'll actually sit there. Effort from this town has been put in from many agencies, right? I don't know what the answer is. So I'm on the corner, right? I only have, if it's 70 foot wide, it's a lot, right? But right there up the top, I have to back out. Now I come out with my pickup truck, and I'm figuring, in my mind, once your rear tire hits the road, you kind of got the right of way. You're pulling out, right? So I have some guy coming up the road. I can't see him until I'm there, right? But I can see almost well enough to judge whether I can go. Then he stops, right? But he didn't stop until the middle of my front lawn. So I tried slamming on the brakes because the other side's a cliff, right? I hit it so hard I broke the pin on the brake pedal. So then I tried to get it to drop. I could have dropped it on my front lawn, but he's 35 into it, right? I mean, is that a proper amount of space? Were you going slow enough to let me out?
Right.
No. And then I actually ruined my truck over it, you know?
Are there any, and I think I know the answer, are there any hidden drive signs?
None.
Dave, is that worth looking at to put one toward the bottom so that maybe that gives somebody, sir? What's that? Yeah.
Be as effective as any other sign.
Well, I actually, I believe in a permanent speed sign, where you're going, and on slow nights, because we're a small town, we don't have New York City resources. I know that, right? On slow nights, aggravate the shit out of everybody, and be Highland Falls. It's the only way you can fix it.
Yeah.
That and speed bumps.
Okay.
I really don't know, because I've watched the town. If I thought somebody wasn't doing anything, I would have privately approached. But I do feel like there's an effort in here. But somebody, I believe it was you, mentioned, but it's a through road. No, it's not. Most of us were built in 1860, right? None of this crap existed. This road was never built for that, right? And these trucks, when they go over the pothole, just in case, they literally rattle the antique glass in my windows, right? And I don't, DPW, yes. The rest of the people get their ass on 9W unless they're doing work on the road, right? Why, I mean, come on. And it wasn't until Waze and Google's came about did that become a thoroughfare, because people figured out it's a shortcut. None of those roads were ever meant to be a shortcut.
Dave, do they have the same sign at the bottom of River that we have at the bottom of Wood that says that trucks a certain size are not allowed to negotiate that? Is that at the bottom of River? I don't think it is.
No.
Should we put one there? There used to be? Because at the bottom of Wood Avenue, we don't allow trucks that are over a certain size.
No, different,
No?
Yeah, but see, you gotta be careful with that too, because I mean, if you need appliances delivered.
But
and they're
there's
coming
other
in-
ways.
Yeah.
But, all right, sir,
And-
anything else? Only,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, it's so bad that I had somebody delivering something, fell off the back of the truck, split his head open, and I'm in the middle of the road trying to hold this and call 911, and these assholes are speeding past me.
Yeah.
It's that bad.
Yeah, I believe
on
you.
that particular corner that Martha and I share.
Yeah.
And she gets at least she can view up. I don't know if you can view down. No. I can't view. She's got these little pine trees like this, but the hill goes up like that. So the trees might as well be like this for me,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, how the hell do you complain about it?
Yep.
Right?
Good points.
And I have one other thing off subject I want to say, and then I'll leave you alone.
All right, give me the
Do
one
we
other
have
thing.
any
This is a hell of a 3 minutes.
We're giving him time. Go ahead. What's the other thing?
That wasn't 3 minutes. You should hear me really talk.
You ought to listen to him go on in our meetings. Trust me.
Do we have any rules for commercial blight in this town? In
For commercial what?
blight.
Blight? B-L-I-G-H-T.
Yeah. Okay. And I grew up in Monroe.
Yep.
I remember when certain, like Kmart went out of business, certain plazas
Yep.
were purchased to remain empty and deteriorate.
Yeah. Where are you speaking about in particular?
Cornwall Plaza.
That's in the town.
Well, that's right. But
Now, I will tell you this.
it went throughout all of Monroe, the village and the
I
town.
got you. I'll tell you this, and then I got to move on. So I do know that the supervisor and the town council are working with the owner of Cornwall Plaza because they own the entire strip there.
Yep.
They are working hard to get some type of grocery store to return to where the Chico's was. It was no one's fault that the Chico's had a difference. Right, but that's empty right now, and I know the owner desperately. The same reason you'd ask me, why is Painter's empty? Painter's is empty because I don't own it. If I owned it, it'd be open, but somebody else owns it, right?
Actually, my point basically was, in the beginning, most of the commercial space was purchased in Monroe and left vacant. Or anybody that wanted to open something had to build a new strip mall.
Oh, I don't think that's
how-
the issue here. Yeah, I don't think, trust me, if the owner of Cornwall Plaza could fill every storefront, they would do it. I know the owner.
All right, well,
They would do it in a heartbeat, trust me, so. But thank you for your points, all good ones, all good ones.
And I think that you should have a law like that on the books because it's coming
Yep.
this way.
Yep. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Ferraro.
Yes, thank you. Melissa Ferraro, 18 River Avenue. My husband and I and our two children have lived in our house at 18 River since 2005. This is the first time that I am on this side of the podium. I've been corporation counsel in the city of Peekskill. I was a village administrator in Dobbs Ferry. So I know all of the intricacies of what you have to do to try to help the residents of River Avenue. But I just wanted to add some things that were missed. There were 2 car accidents since we have lived in our home for 18 years that both took out the phone pole across the street from our house. We live directly across from Spruce.
Yep.
And cars come up. It's like when they come up the curb, then they take off. And I mean, one ended up in our driveway. How they didn't hit my house is beyond me. But it's a real problem. And I think the issue with the stop signs is that my house is directly across the street. There's no sidewalks there to put dual stop signs because there's no right of way for the village. I don't know if it's possible to do one stop sign going up River Avenue. Personally, I've never had an issue with traffic speeding down River Avenue. It's always coming up. My kids, it's not just middle school. My daughter goes to high school. She leaves the house at 6:30 in the morning. It's dark and it's scary. We taught our kids to walk up our side of river where there's no sidewalk rather than to walk up river to cross over by the Storm King Lounge and Fair. That way they can jump. They see traffic coming towards them and they can jump into the grass going up the hill. I walk my dog every morning, and it's like playing Frogger when I'm trying to cross to get to my house. Like, my dog is slow, so I start going, and if a car starts coming up the hill, I have to pull him back and stop. I saw Mrs. Kirshner trying to get out of her driveway. I was in my room and heard a sound, a horn blaring from downriver. I could hear it go past my house. I live about 3 houses down from Mrs. Kirshner, and that person had plenty of time. I looked out my window like a nosy neighbor, and I see her trying to back out of her driveway and the car blaring on their horn. This is like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then she pulls over, and the car just blared their horn. It's just my suggestion, and I don't think that this is maybe something that we all want, but maybe rumble strips would be an option. They're loud though, but they would stop people and they would slow them down coming up the hill if we can't do the stop signs. I think it's worse than a speed bump, but something to look into.
So since I have you all here, so since the entire street is here, you mentioned sidewalks. So all of River is not completed with sidewalks. The problem with sidewalks, and I looked at that this year because we bumped up the money for sidewalks. I'd like to see every neighborhood have sidewalks where appropriate. When I brought this to folks and said, is this possible to do? Do you think that River Avenue would be behind this? The issue was the property frontages are so small that to do that, well, first of all, we own 5 feet of your property anyway, but it's your property. But if we did that, would people go, no, I don't want you to take up half my front yard with concrete slabs? But I look at it, sir, to your point, where how do you walk up? And I know some people do it, and as we're trying to make the village more walkable, and we have funds coming in from New York Forward, and we're looking at things like this, how do you make it safer on River for people to walk? You can't walk up River and be safe. There's no way. And you've given us all the reasons why driving is unsafe. But sidewalks really aren't a feasible idea, are they? I see some shaking heads.
Sidewalks would not make people won't go any slower because they figure any pedestrian on the side is going to go on the sidewalk.
It's not going to slow people down.
Faster down the hill.
Yeah.
I don't think sidewalks
for the pulling out.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, besides just, there's no
Understood. I just wanted to take the pulse of the room. I think I got it. All right. What else, Melissa? Anything else?
No, nothing else.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Sir.
You've got 2 years to figure this out.
1 year, 10 months, and 3 days. Don't you tack onto my term.
You said
Oh.
West Point won't be fixed, Toy won't be open. for
I
2 more
said,
years.
well,
It's a big hill going down for people cutting off West
this
Point.
is,
Gives you 2 years to figure.
I got you, and we're gonna talk about a little bit of that when we get to the storm damage, but I'll give you a little teaser. I think it'll be fixed quicker than you think, and I've seen the damage. I mean, a chunk of the roadway just washed away, but because it is a connector to West Point, the military academy, I believe it'll be fixed sooner than you think. Not suggesting that maybe my 2 years is a little optimistic, but yeah. Okay, all right. Anything else? Anybody have anything to add? I think we got the crux of this. Here's what I'm gonna commit to. The board is gonna commit to this. We will take a look at the flashing stop signs. I don't know if it's viable. I will look into that. The last parking spaces. I'll walk that with Dave tomorrow. I'll bring back a presentation to the board. I think I'm off the hump of where I was before, where I was reluctant to take away parking spaces. I think the time is right now. I'll commit to that. I'll get with the chief and we'll discuss where we need to possibly put patrols at different times, what we can do differently in and around the school area. Remember, we don't control the school, but in and around the school, and your street is adjacent to it, we will look at that and see what we can do with our police department. I think it's a no-brainer to change the speed limit to 20. Now, you're right. There are people that are going to break the law no matter what, to your point, ma'am, and 25, 20, 15, or 5, it's not going to change it, but maybe it makes one person give it a second thought and look at it differently. I think that's an easy one. The speed bumps, ma'am, I'll look into that. That's a tough one. We looked into that on a couple other streets, and as Dave pointed out, you're not just talking about a piece of macadam or a piece of asphalt. It is a huge strip now that pitches down on either side, and I don't know how deep they are, but it's a major undertaking, but maybe that's a road that needs that. We will look at that. What's that?
They come in recycled plastic or rubber.
That's for a neighborhood.
Got it. Okay, and I'm trying to see if there's anything, and the stop signs at Spruce and River. I'll take a look at that as well, okay? I will do that this week. Please understand, this isn't me pushing this off. We have people that got flooded out of their homes, and we've been so engrossed in that. But I know that you guys have been patient for a long time. I've talked to Mr. Kirshner a number of times about this. I know it's important, and we will tackle that this week. And then I will put something out in a mayor's message and make it available on social media saying what we are looking to do once I get the board in concert. Is that fair? Thank you. All right. Appreciate you guys. Anybody else on any of, why aren't you speaking, Ron?
So I did everything to my house to make it noise resistant.
Yeah.
And I put shrubs in the front of it.
Yeah.
Because
State your name and your address again.
44 River Avenue. I'm
44
right on
River.
the turn.
Rob Christensen.
The green and the the cedar house, the cedar shake house, I put bushes in the front because when they mature, any car that's gonna hit me, because I know they come down fast. I'm from the city, so I know people try fast from the city. And when those bushes mature, any car coming down there are gonna hit those 5 junipers that I planted. What else? I put noise-proof windows in my house.
Yep.
It helps me. So I know with the way, there's a trend for loud vehicles that's only come to, into the culture, I know, in the last 4 or 5 years. This hasn't always been like this. We've always had noisemakers from the Harley Davidsons or whatever, but never this loud. It's getting really loud. And they're getting louder and louder and louder and louder. So this is the trend. I don't know. EVs, when EVs come, it'll all be gone anyway, so it doesn't matter. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else? All right. If you want to stick around, we are going to talk about noise further down the agenda in regard to mini bikes on private property in the village. But I'm not going to ask you guys all to stick around for this. We're going to go on with the meeting, so if you want to slip out, go ahead and do it, all right? All right, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's he get the heat, the air conditioning set on, 50 below?
This is awesome. It's so hot outside. I came in, I was sweating from
no,
walking from my car.
I'm with you.
I'm an AC.
I am too.
For the record, I love a crowded meeting.
I do too. Just means engagement.
I love to see the room full.
I do too. I do too.
Get it every time.
All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on with the meeting, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Potter Stewart.
So the next item of business are the meeting minutes. So I'm going to make a motion for the board to accept the June 19th, 2023 business meeting minutes as presented. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Treasurer's report. The open utility balances report for the end of April reads as follows. Steve, can you just ask them to step outside if they're going to chat?
What do you call them?
Reads as follows. Village water, sewer, garbage, and penalties, $384,224.50. Town water and penalties, $395,474,488. I'd like to make a motion to approve the June 2023 warrant number 7 and authorize payment, including prepayments, totaling, I'm going to have to total those amounts up. Totaling those two numbers put together, $384,224.50 and $395,474.88. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Okay, next item of business. The revenue expenditure reports by fund are: general fund revenue, $3,505,468.36, with expenditures of $1,899,982.30. Water fund revenue, $971,038.46, with expenditures of $709,261.51. The sewer fund revenue, $195,030.58, with expenditures of $103,290.45. Total receipts, $4,671,537.40, or 56.98% in anticipated revenues, and $2,712,534.28, which totals 33.08% in anticipated expenditures through the end of April. The amount collected in village taxes, $2,778,181 through June 30th. The sewer capital fund balance stands at $595,563.85, including interest through June 30th. Moving on to board department reports. Building Department, Trustee Carnwright.
Report for June 2023. Building permits issued 18, certificate of compliance occupancy issued 10, on-site inspections 31, violations 0, stop work orders 0, municipal searches 5, solar panels 4, and fire inspections 4. Manny Carmona, Code Enforcement.
Senor Carmona, anything to add? Anything we missed? All right, any questions for the building inspector from the board? All right, moving on, Fire Department, Deputy Mayor Kane.
Okay, Cornwall and Hudson Fire Department, their June 2023 report. With respect to events, there were 5 EMS calls, 1 structure fire mutual aid to Newburgh, 1 brush wood fire, 1 motor vehicle accident, 7 automatic alarms, 3 odor investigations, 1 power line down, 1 canceled en route, 3 standbys, 1 apparatus station maintenance, 2 meetings, 1 work detail, and 3 drills. The chief notes that boat 416 is out of service for repairs. It's anticipated to be back in service by the week of July 14th. Engine 412 has been out of service since April 8th. It's expected to be back in service the week of July 14th. The hoses and ground ladders on the engines have been tested. We lost about 6 lengths of those hose. Captain Trainer completed Fire Officer 1 training. Lieutenant Quinn completed 3 of the 5 modules for Fire Officer 1. And Firefighter Dolan has completed her EMT training. She finished at the top of her class. Charles Quinn, Fire Chief.
Chief Quinn, anything to add?
Just that those 2 vehicles are still out of service. The repairs have taken longer than anticipated.
Not shocking. Parts issues?
Part issues.
Got it. Okay.
I have an inquiry for the chief. Is it your birthday today?
It is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Chief. All right. All right. All right. All right. Any other questions from the board for Chief Quinn? All right. Moving on. Police Department, Trustee Brain.
The monthly police report for Cornwall on Hudson, June 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2023. There were 403 total calls for service. There were 3 grand larceny calls among felonies. Misdemeanors and violations, there was 1 petty larceny call and 1 harassment or aggravated harassment call. Under arrests, there were 2 misdemeanor arrests. Vehicle and traffic enforcement, there was 1 personal injury accident, 5 property damage accidents, 18 traffic summonses issued, 6 traffic warnings issued, 3 parking summonses issued, 9 traffic enforcement posts, and 2 speed or radar sign postings. Non-criminal activity, there were 3 fire response calls, 1 domestic incident, 5 alarm response calls, 1 noise complaint, 8 suspicious incident calls, 10 animal complaints, and 2 disorderly person calls. The PD assisted as follows. The Town of Cornwall PD 7 times, EMS 14 times, other agencies twice, other police agencies additionally twice, 1 welfare check, and 2 citizens assists. During the month of June, the Village of Cornwall on Hudson PD received a generous donation of approximately $850 from the Greater Cornwall Chamber of Commerce as proceeds from the recent car show for local first responders. These proceeds will be utilized to have landscaping beautification done in front of the headquarters here in the near future, as well as purchasing a new microwave oven for the officers' usage. During the month of June, all COHPD officers participated in mandatory departmental firearms training and qualification, which was held at the Town of New Windsor Police Department's firearms range. And there, we did conduct an interview this evening with a candidate for the sergeant position that is soon to be vacant. Respectfully submitted, Chief Stephen E. Dixon.
Chief, anything to add? Any questions from board members for the chief? Okay. All right. Before we go to the Department of Public Works and the Water Department in particular, I skipped over it. I wanted to give a storm status and repairs update. See, I thought everybody here tonight, it turned out, until I saw it was River Avenue, and all the water off the mountain doesn't hit River, it hits Wood Avenue first. So by the time it gets to River, it's already in our basement. But I thought there was going to be some turnout on that. I wanted to give a quick update. So last Sunday, approximately 3 or 4 in the afternoon, received a reach out from Assistant Chief Trainer, was in contact also with DPW Superintendent Halverson, and we started to get our first reports of washouts. We got 6.8 inches of rain in a 3-hour period. The governor referred to this as a 1,000-year storm. You can argue whether it's a century or 1,000 years or 50 years, but it's interesting for those of us that lived through Tropical Storm Irene and Superstorm Sandy, which was not as bad as Irene was here for us. It was interesting, or just the way it worked out, where people that got hit the hardest during Irene did not get hit as hard this time, and people that didn't get touched during Irene got hit badly this time. I'm going to give a conservative estimate that we had between 10 and 12 residents the DPW superintendent, myself, and a number of local and state and federal elected officials toured some of these homes. The bottom of Mountain Road got hit particularly brutally, right around the corner from Mr. Joya. Up top of Mountain Road, too, those houses that are really close to the roadway as you come down Mountain Road before you get to Maple, or just past Maple, got hit pretty hard as well. First floors washed out. The culverts there took a beating. Central Hudson has been doing repair work for pipeline along Mountain Road. And it's unfortunate because 6 years ago we had that road paved. So, of course, it's getting all carved up. And they are going to repair it when they're done. But all that was going on when this storm hit. 6.8 inches of water in 3 hours. And then a few days later, we had 1.5 inches in the span of an hour. All that water adds up. It's good for our reservoirs. It's good for, replenishing the Woodbury Creek, which is a concern of ours with, certain contiguous communities doing drawdowns on their well fields of that creek. So our water system is in a good place, and I'll have Mike Trainer speak about that as far as what he saw this weekend. But in regards to people that need help, on the municipal side, in Orange County, the threshold is $36 million for us to receive FEMA aid. The president has already declared a disaster zone in Vermont. You're probably wondering, why hasn't he done it here? Highland Falls got destroyed. Fort Montgomery got battered and beaten. West Point, the United States Military Academy, which doesn't factor into that $36 million because it's a standalone military installation, got hit pretty hard as well. We are going to meet or exceed that threshold fairly easily, as was told to me in an assemblage today by Senator Schumer. So who from around here has been out here? So immediately on Sunday, Senator Skoufis checked in on us, Assemblyman Ekus checked in on us, the Orange County Executive checked in on us, the Orange County Sheriff checked in on us, and then Congressman Ryan checked in on us, sent us constituent services people and folks to be on the ground. Today, actually 2 days ago, Senator Schumer called myself and the supervisor personally to see how we were doing and to tell us that help was on the way. Senator Schumer came out today. Trustee Brain was there. Deputy Mayor Kane was with me. We went out to Black Rock. He did not make it into the village, but he took a helicopter ride over 218 to see the devastation there, over Fort Montgomery, over Highland Falls, and then drove in with his security detail to come out to see Black Rock Forest, which one of the main buildings out there got destroyed, almost leveled, to see about what can be done. 5 minutes before this meeting, I got a call from the governor's aide for Governor Hochul, and she asked for me to be in Highland Falls tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Don't know what for. They didn't say why, but if you read the tea leaves, I am assuming, especially since Senator Schumer said that the disaster bill is on the desk of the president, and Senator Schumer was right. He said that, whenever there are hurricanes or flooding or forest fires or, things like that across the nation, our tax dollars go to help that, and now it's time for us to get some help back here in New York. So, as I said to the senator today, we didn't lose any life. One woman in Fort Montgomery died during the flash flooding. We're very lucky. That's the most important thing. But I saw some homes that were destroyed on the first floor, and that's living space for people. So, and it'll be impossible. And Dave and his crew did an amazing job of suspending what days garbage was picked up or brush was picked up or this was picked up, and they picked up everything. But if you had a chance to see, well done. But if you had a chance to see some of the stuff put out to the curb in the immediate aftermath, wedding albums, people's bedding, people's clothing. I saw a bridal gown. I mean, just the kind of stuff that, you simply cannot replace. But long story short, moving forward, we have made certain that everybody that had any type of damage to their property, all right, individual property, because on the municipal side, we've been documenting that so that we get remediation for that and recompense for that. We've been taking pictures of it, and we've been taking video of it. On the private side, the private sector, the not-for-profits and for residents, you have to go to the Orange County site and you have to fill out damages. You're not going to get paid or reimbursed by the county, but you have to document it. This is part of the process. If we get good news tomorrow, you will be the second to know. I will immediately announce it publicly and put it out on social media, and that would be a blessed relief if that comes. Okay, let's talk about the riverfront. Coordination with us and CSX has not been great. Neither the highway superintendent or myself were notified by CSX that they were going to occupy our park. And that's what they did. I understand it's emergency. This is not the time for me to cry, stomp my feet, and curse people out. It's not the time. There will be time for that, and that's coming. But in their first occupation, when they dropped off tons and tons and tonnage of materials, big boulders, crushed item 4, pea gravel, everything, and destroyed the parking lot. And I get it, getting those trains up. They were able to do that in 48 hours. How they did it with the tracks, the pictures I saw, the drone photographs and video I saw of the tracks that were washed out from just south of Donahue Memorial Park down to West Point, it was a feat of engineering and construction. But coordination was non-existent. So as they were leaving the park, I had to close the park because it became too much of a safety hazard. Now, 99% of the folks were okay with that. Very, very little grumbling, but grumbling comes no matter what you tell people. But once a state of emergency is declared, yes, I do have the power to close the park, and I closed it for safety purposes because it was too dangerous for people to be down there sunbathing, kayaking, doing whatever they wanted to do while all this construction was going on. As soon as they vacated the park on Thursday, I immediately reopened it. And why did I rush to reopen it? I didn't want to, but I knew that the kayak companies that make their living in July and August, that's how they pay the bills, had already been crushed this year, and they needed the opportunity to do that, and I felt we could do that safely. Our guys spent the better part of Friday down there with the street sweepers and with our small bobcats in cleaning up the park and getting it back to serviceable space. The next morning, CSX showed up in force again. The same contractors came in. No communication except from the contractor who we had forged a relationship with and was kind enough to call me, but they showed back up on Friday morning, dumped all the same amount of tonnage and stone and blah, blah, blah there and are shipping it now down to fix the repairs from the second onslaught of rain we got. We are the only staging area between here and West Point where they can dump that type of material, and then they have to put it into smaller trucks and truck it down to the railroad sites where the train tracks washed out. Again, we're all one team in this country. I understand that needs to happen. We're going to work on the coordination, and as the highway superintendent and I talked about, we're going to ensure that we get a new parking lot when this is done. Half of our parking area, everything north of Dock Hill Road, has been destroyed. When I say destroyed, just broken asphalt. And I get it because when the trucks came in with these giant boulders, they didn't pick them up and place them on the ground. They tipped the truck back and just dumped them. So the parking lot is shot. There's areas of the parking lot that are going to remain roped off because they're just dangerous and we don't want people parking on them. So our 78 parking spaces, 3 handicap spaces, and 8 boat trailer spaces are going to be severely curtailed. I'm telling people to park as best as possible down toward the yacht club end. Those 35 spaces there were relatively untouched other than debris washing off the mountain. And really the only damage we took to the park from the storm, which blows my mind, the composting toilet was totally fine and withstood the storm, but the cinder block wall behind it, right adjacent to the railroad track, got blown over. And when I say blown over, the water, I mean, if you don't believe in the force of water, it's unbelievable what it can do. You might notice that there is a giant 30 by 50 foot freshly poured concrete pad, which we're going to discuss tonight, which just got poured today, right, Dave? Just got poured today. That's part of the pavilion project, which has been ongoing for this board. It feels like for an interminably long time. It's only been 2 years, but it was a DASNY grant from the state, and the village is erecting a pavilion there for public use so that there'll be a covered place for people to have events and things like that. Picnic tables underneath of it, things like that. So the pad was poured. The next step is for us to get the kit that we've already ordered and then to find somebody to erect it and put it up. So we're hoping to have that done by the fall. But that is tucked in just on the inside of Dock Hill Road, nestled in next to the railroad tracks there in the least obtrusive place in the park, because everything had to meet the specs of Scenic Hudson. And remember, Scenic Hudson doesn't just care about your view on land. Scenic Hudson also protects your view from the waterway. So nothing can block the, Storm King Mountain views, the vistas, and all that kind of stuff. So that has been going on. We're hoping to have that thing wrapped up sometime this fall. So that is the status of the waterfront. It is open now. We're asking people to be careful down there and recognize that CSX is going to be working down there probably throughout the next week. Dave, what did I miss in regards to? An active construction zone is right. So, yep. So, okay. So, Dave, did I miss anything on our damage on our end?
I mean, Mountain Road took a big hit, and spots on the boulevard we had washed out as well. We've done a lot of just temporary mitigation to make sure things are okay while we await the FEMA declaration that we're all hoping for. I've had our village engineer walk with us, I shouldn't say with us, with me, and I should have a preliminary estimate for cost of repairs by morning. We start into the county tomorrow afternoon.
Got it. So we're tracking on that, and like I said, if we do get, I hate to say good news when you have devastation, but if we do get the news from the state and from the feds that there will be remediation from FEMA, I said I will make that announcement as soon as I get that news, and that will be good for all of us. Okay. It is going to be a long process. There is no doubt about that. Just telling people to record any bit of damage that you have to your property, no matter how small. All right, Dave, Department of Public Works, you want to handle their report from last month?
Village of Cornwall and Hudson Department of Public Works, June 2023. Trash collected for the month, 128.35 tons. Recycling collected for the month, 34.5 tons. Yard waste collected for the month, 80 yards. Repairs and maintenance of village-owned vehicles and equipment. Mowing and trimming of village-owned properties continues. Sweeping of streets. New used sweeper has been delivered and is in service. Blacktop patching, rebuilt stone wall at the bandstand, started replacement of guardrail along Dock Hill Road, restriped the parking lots. Notes, 2015 garbage truck back in service, engine repairs completed. Asking the board to declare the 1994 Ford street sweeper, VIN X whatever, surplus so I can have it listed for sale. Dave Halverson, Superintendent of Public Works.
What's that?
Need a motion on that, to declare that surplus.
I make a motion that we declare the 1994 Ford street sweeper with the VIN as listed, surplus.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. All right, Water Department. Mike, before Trustee Brain gives the Water Department report, you want to give a quick dump on the reservoirs, what we dealt with during the storm, and what state of affairs our well field, our reservoirs, all that is in.
All right. So during the storm on July 9th, at the height of the storm, we had staff that went up to the reservoirs. They inspected the reservoirs for how they were, what kind of condition they were in, if there was any overtopping of the dams and whatnot. There was no overtopping. The dams were not compromised. The water was going down the spillway as it was designed. During the night, during the storm, our access road to the Black Rock filtration plant was washed out. This is an ongoing issue with all the big storms. Our access road to the Maple Road pump station was washed out. We also lost the water pump, or the pumps that feed the mountain system. We lost power up at that pump station, our generator switch. We ran into an issue with that day as well. The original 1895 10-inch water main from the water system coming down Continental Road suffered a catastrophic failure under one of the creeks that the town experienced a washout of their bridge. And when I say catastrophic failure, it was flowing at about 1,500 gallons a minute. And it was draining our storage tank. If we hadn't located it, we may have run out of water. Fortunately, we located it, was able to shut it off. 2 homes were without water for about 16 hours, but we were able to get them water back the next day. Taylor Road wells, they, out there, we only had about 4.5 inches of rain. The Moodna did not crest like it did any other storm. The infrastructure improvements that the village made a couple of years ago to harden them from floods worked perfectly. And our Catskill filtration plant, which we're not actively using, but it is part of our assets, that did sustain heavy flooding off the hillside back, coming down from the high school. So that's pretty much the damage report.
Mike, are we still averaging around 700,000 gallons per day of water usage? Are we using more, or is it still
Yeah, for that storm, because of the leak, we were up over 1 million gallons. But average, we're probably between 700,000 and 800,000.
And that's for all of Cornwall,
That's for all of Cornwall. In the winter time, we're under 700,000. With the wet summer we're having, our consumption's down.
Good. Okay.
Question on the pipe failure at Continental. Is that 1,500 gallons a minute simply because the entire pipe broke and that's the volume that's in there?
No.
Or is it related to the rainfall in some way?
Well, we haven't been able to access the pipe because it's underneath the washed out road or bridge. A 10-inch main can probably produce 3,000 gallons or better of water a minute. So, I mean, there's a break there somewhere. It could be a crack. It could be a section of pipe that got hit by a boulder. This is one of the reasons why we're working to remove all of our water mains that cross through a stream. We're trying to bring them above ground where it becomes practical. You know.
Good. All right. The good segue into this. Trustee Brain, the Water Department report.
Village of Cornwall and Hudson Water Department, June 2023 monthly report. Monthly production was 22,413 gallons with a daily average of 747,000 gallons. We collected 31 samples in accordance with our approved water quality monitoring plan. As for treatment, the Black Rock water treatment plant remains offline, awaiting the New York State DEC Speedies permit. We're preparing for an August 1st startup of the Black Rock water treatment plant. Repaired the Black Rock water treatment plant regulator, repaired chlorine leak at Jackson Avenue treatment facility. Transmission and distribution, 72 utility markouts were completed. A boil water advisory was issued and subsequently rescinded for Hasbrook Avenue. Water shut off at the following properties at the request of the property owners: 223 Shore Road, 10 Beeks Road, 44 Maple Street, and 45 Robert Road. Water service curve valve was repaired at 45 Robert Road. The department painted fire hydrants, recycled scrap metal from leak repairs, and a fire hydrant was installed at New York State Route 32 at the Moodna Bridge and at Hasbrook Avenue. Meters, the commercial meters were read. 12 final water meter readings were completed. 41 residential water meters were replaced. Rebuilt the Cornwall High School 8-inch water meter. 15 water line inspections were completed. Continuing education, the staff participated in a continuing education seminar sponsored by the Hudson Valley Waterworks Conference as required by the State Department of Health. The staff provided public education regarding the water system and new drinking water regulations at the annual Riverfest celebration. Provided a tour of Black Rock Water Treatment Plant and education to third grade students from the Cornwall School District. Routine outside property maintenance was conducted, and the superintendent informs us that he will be on vacation from July 17th, which I do believe is today, through July 23rd. Sincerely, Michael P. Traynor, Senior Water Superintendent. Are you on vacation, Superintendent?
Well, he's working for
Today.
the fair. All right, anything to add, Michael?
I just want to add that we are in the midst of doing the water meter replacement project. We've done about 10% of the meters. One thing that I'm going to ask the board to institute in the coming months would be a manual read fee of $75. This is for the meters that when the people don't allow us access to change out their meters. If we're gonna have to go out and read these meters, we're gonna start charging a fee if the board allows it.
What does it cost a resident when we do change out their meters?
It's free.
Okay, so then I think that's reasonable. I mean, I'm
Yes.
gonna say.
Were you saying
the response
$75 a
rate?
month, Mike?
No, when they
Every
read.
time we read.
Every time we read, okay.
Yeah, it's
Which is how
common,
often they're reading?
6 times a year.
6 times a year.
So it's common with big meter projects like this because people are slow to have their meters replaced. Because generally speaking, the meters will read less water than they're consuming when they're
Hey,
older
Michael,
meters.
can we put out a grace period of time? Can we notify residents on their water bill and
Yep.
in a way that nobody reads the entire water bill? I know I don't, but in a way that it'll jump out at them to say, on such and such date, if you have not complied with this, we will charge $75 for that.
Yeah, we currently send out a letter to everybody.
Perfect.
Telling them they need to have their meters changed, and we'll follow up with a second notice. Then on the third notice, we'll tell them about the fee.
Perfect.
But the board will have to approve that at a future meeting.
Didn't you, what's the current response rate?
It's about 10% right now. We still have 90% out there, but we did 41 meters in 1 month's time. There's a total of 360 that have to be done. So.
All right, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, Jim.
Windsor EMS report for June 2023. With respect to personnel, 1 new paramedic and 3 new EMTs, 9 new volunteers, no employee injuries. With respect to operations, 431 total dispatches. 100% of the calls were covered, and this has been the busiest month in the Windsor EMS history again. 315 patients were transported, or over 2,400 calls for the year. They're on track for 4,800 calls. There were 292 in New Windsor, 41 in Cornwall, 16 in the village of Cornwall and Hudson. Cornwall covered 2 calls in Woodbury and 5 in Highland Falls. The Windsor units covered 4 calls in Cornwall and COH. Cornwall units covered 16 in New Windsor. Mutual aid provided 75 times to various locations or private transports, non-emergency transports for residents. The average response time in New Windsor was 6 minutes 39 seconds. In Cornwall was 5 minutes 29 seconds, and 6 minutes 45 seconds in Cornwall and Hudson. Let's see. They completed more operational. And they completed their first full year of Cornwall with 100% of the calls covered. 3 classes, yep, that's
Amen.
excellent. 3 classes were held. They call audit with Dr. Felice, MVA drill with New Windsor Fire Department, and documentation class with the Newburgh EMS. All vehicles are in service. There was 1 accident sent to insurance. New uniforms were rolled out next week. Interagency mutual aid meeting with the local agencies regarding Empress. New Windsor EMS received multiple EMS awards on June 19th. The meeting with St. Luke's regarding the STEMI and cardiac care FTO program is progressing well, and they have helped vastly with new members and staff. Let's see, lastly, with respect to administrative, issues still to be corrected at the Cornwall station, yet progress has been made, an upcoming meeting to finish the key and camera system. They updated the website. Issues remain with the SBA requesting our COVID funds be paid back. We have not made progress with Congress Ryan's office yet. Issues remain with the Cornwall ambulance grant with Senator Skoufis's office and the grant request sent out to various possible sources. And in closing, the chief thanks everyone, Cornwall and Hudson. It's been very successful so far.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it was a little over a year ago that we were having meetings in regards to whether or not we should go this route, and I'm ecstatic that they have a 100% response record. That's what we expect. That's the gold standard, and they really are. They're quite impressive. So, great to see that. All right, let's roll through these resolutions. A number of these should be fairly cut and dry. the intermunicipal agreement, the IMA with the town of Cornwall for a hydrovac truck. I'm going to make a motion to authorize myself, the mayor, to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Cornwall for the submission of a grant application and joint use of a hydrovac truck, subject to review and approval by the attorney for the village. May I have a second?
Second.
Dave, anything to add? Dave Halverson, anything to add on this hydrovac Mike, joint operation with the town?
No, we use it every year. We purchase one, and actually, we're going to be renting one in the coming months. Actually, probably in a week or two, so we can clean out the culverts and the catch basins up in Black Rock. And the town approached us when we had ours about going in partners on one, because I think that the cost estimate's about $485,000. It's not something we would use every day, but between the three departments, it would get used quite a bit.
Excellent. All right, may I have a second?
And
Further
sorry,
discussion? Counselor?
Sorry. One of the things the IMA is going to provide is that the village is going to pay half the cost of preparing the grant application. The town has retained McGoey Hauser Etzel to prepare the grant application, and we're going to share that cost equally.
Okay.
Mike, what percentage of the grant is the cost of the truck?
I believe the cost would be about $60,000 to each department. So that's $180,000. So we would get $320,000 out of the grant. So what's that? 25% share.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next item of business, special event permit application approval. For the, I don't know if you have noticed or not, but we've been experiencing the Art Walk, which is sponsored by the Greater Cornwall Chamber of Commerce. It started in Main Street, more so up toward the upper part of town. And this past Friday, in spite of the threat of rain, I believe they had somewhere up to like 50 different vendors. Of course, with the rain pending, a number of them dropped out the last minute, but they extended it into the village. We had a band here. They had music up at Bridge Street. So I'm going to make a motion for this board to approve the special event permit for the Art Walk, which will be held every second Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. from July through October. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, are they gonna block the streets?
Yeah.
No, there's no blockage of streets. So the vendors basically are on the sidewalks. We had a band that played at the bandstand, just like our Tuesday night bandstand concert series. And I think, unfortunately, because of the threat of weather, we only had 3 or 4 vendors down at this end on this one. But it's starting to catch fire, and I think you're going to start seeing every month that there's going to be more and more vendors, and it's creating a buzz.
So where's the parameters, meaning where's the start and the end?
So the start is essentially, say, where Canterbury Inn is.
No, I know in the town, yeah,
Oh,
okay, in the town.
and then
in
down here, the bandstand. I don't think there was anything down toward Las Margaritas. Mike, am I missing anything?
No, the general, and our events committee isn't involved. We helped them get a band this year, or this month, but the general purpose is from the Greater Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
They're positioning these artists, if you will, around the local businesses to drive foot traffic to these businesses. So it's not anywhere in particular except for those businesses. So it's not going to necessarily.
They were out in front of like GHS Jewelers.
Yep.
They were up towards where Painters was. Okay. But yeah, the whole point is to get more foot traffic. And on decent evenings, when the weather holds up, they get a big turnout. And this last Friday, they actually had a bus. They used the senior bus, and they ran it as a shuttle. So it started all the way uptown, and then just rolled here, made about 4 or 5 stops, and then did the same thing back going uptown, and then just kept doing loops. So people could park in one place and see it all, and then get back to their cars. So they're trying to bring solutions. Okay.
That's all been discussion. You have to call the question.
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion to approve. Oh, I did that. I need a second.
You got it.
Got it.
And that was the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm getting punch drunk here. Special event permit application approval for the Cornwall Youth Committee at Donahue Memorial Park in conjunction with the Cornwall and Hudson Special Events Committee on August 18th from 5:30 to 10 p.m. This is when we're going to hold our Movies on the Hudson night, the feature that everybody looks forward to at the Donahue Farm property, which I tell you, every month it looks better and better and better. I'm excited to see where we go in the next couple of years, but the community garden's in place and doing the movie down there this year, it's going to be a big thrill. The Cornwall Youth Committee, which is a subsidiary of the Cornwall Rec Department. So it's not like the Special Events Committee or the Riverfest Committee that answer under the village board. It is a committee that answers under the town's rec department. So they would like to sell alcohol as a fundraiser. And in order to do so, the village is looking to approve that, to allow them to sell beer and wine at the movie. However, it is subject to the town of Cornwall obtaining the required insurance and, of course, their town council approving it first. So this is going to be a vote contingent upon the town approving it and having insurance for it, even though it's going to be at Donahue Memorial Park. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, next, special event permit application approval for the Cheryl Walker 5K Run Walk on October 22nd. This is the run that begins, what did I do? Can you wait till the end, though?
We're on a roll, Barbara.
Yes, yes. Well, they're not selling it to youth.
Nor is
Right.
the youth selling it.
And the youth is not selling it. It's the adults that are doing it. The 4th of July committee did it. I mean, I know it's your suggestion is they've got youth in their title, and so it sends. No, I didn't think it was wrong in the first place. I think the 4th of July committee did it as a fundraiser, but yes, we're. All right, we can discuss this on a sidebar. Next item is the Cheryl Walker 5K Run Walk on October 22nd. The young lady that runs this, what's her name? I'm forgetting it right now. Okay. Anyhow, she's done it a number of years. I think a family member passed away from cancer. They run it. They set up very early in the morning at the firehouse. I have been engaged with the pastors, because we have a new one now, a temporary one, at the Cornwall Presbyterian Church. And Chief, I will ask you to do the same this year on that date, is to put a barricade across those parking spaces adjacent to Cornwall and Hudson Elementary School, where Church Street is, and between the church for senior citizens that attend I think their services are at 10 a.m. I also attend that service at 10 to make sure that the DJ that will be playing will not be playing so loud as to make it impossible for the congregation to enjoy preaching. And I was there last year, and it was done at the right threshold. That was a concern about the music in the morning in church and then parking. So I'm going to ask for an approval of this. I'm going to make a motion to approve this race on October 22nd, contingent upon them complying with the agreement to limit the noise pollution at around 10 o'clock when services begin, and to ensure that we make sure that there's parking available for their seniors that wouldn't otherwise be able to get parking because the streets will be packed. And yes, sir, Mr. King?
Alibi, you said October 22nd. On
Yes.
here we've got September 17th.
Yeah.
I've got October 22nd here.
It is September 17th.
I stand corrected. It is September 17th, so 1 month from today.
And what's the time?
2 months from today.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. It is 2 months. Yes. Okay. Setup is like 7 o'clock in the morning. I think they start running at 8. It's a 5K, so that's 3.2 miles. Obviously, it's a run-walk kind of thing, but they're wrapping up before the church services start at 10 o'clock.
All right.
So, all right.
Second.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Appointment of Jennifer Geller to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Sarita Bandekar has has held I'm sorry, Counselor?
No, you're doing it right. Go ahead.
Okay. Sarita Banakar has held a position on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a number of years, served honorably for us, and is seeking to step down on or about July 31st. Gave us a couple of months' notice, which was a great courtesy and gracious of her to do that. And we canvassed for someone to replace her. The board is in possession of the resume of one Miss Jennifer Geller, who is a teacher in the Newburgh and Large City School District. And I'm going to do this in phases. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion to ask the board to accept the resignation of Sarita Banakar from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With regrets, aye.
With regrets. And then I'm now going to make a motion to appoint Jennifer Geller to the Zoning Board of Appeals to fulfill the balance of Sarita Banakar's term, which will be expiring April 6th of 2026. Joe, are these 4 or 6 year terms, or 5?
How many people? As many board members?
4 year.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
No.
I think Sarita joined in 23.
No, but the terms are staggered, so it's 1 year, 2
Got
year,
it,
3
got
years,
it,
4
got
years.
it, got it.
until-
Okay, all
yeah.
right.
So each one's slightly different.
All right, so may I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion in regards to Miss Jennifer Geller, Geller, joining our Zoning Board of Appeals? Hearing none? All in favor? Aye. All right, moving on. Next item.
And Mr. Mayor, someone
Yes,
should
sir.
just reach out to her and let her know she has to come in and take the oath and sign the book.
Doris, you make sure to remind me tomorrow.
She already did it.
Oh, you did it?
Jim,
What's that now?
she outdrew you.
You've already talked to her?
No, but Jean normally does that, so I would.
Okay, I need to reach out to her and congratulate her or provide her condolences, or a package of both.
I'm informed
Okay.
she's in Iceland currently.
Oh,
on
okay,
holiday.
all right. Okay, so about 5 years ago, 4 municipalities, the village of Cornwall and Hudson, the town of Cornwall, the village of Woodbury, and the town of Woodbury entered into an agreement to have an engineering firm that was replete with hydrologists monitor the levels of the Woodbury Creek. Why is that important? Because another community has a well field out there, and the concerns were, since that is a important creek, namely, it's a trout stream, one of our precious resources of a trout stream, and the monitoring was being done by the community itself. Now, you don't ever want to point fingers and say, well, this community shouldn't do this, or we're trusting this or that. But the 4 communities got together. We entered into an agreement. I believe it was $20,000 a year, with each community paying $5,000. We did it for we signed an agreement for 4 years. The concerns that the monitors had, our monitors, were that the monitoring equipment placed by the community that has the well field out there were too close together. And so, of course, it looked like the stream was robust, whereas the monitoring equipment should have been out here where the stream had drawn down more, and there were concerns. We had 2 dry years followed by 2 exceedingly wet years. So last year, they came back to us and they said, hey, look, we're not going to charge you another year for this. We'll just go ahead and monitor, because we don't need to monitor this year because it's so wet. Everything, the water table is high, the stream is healthy right now. So they did that. So it was for a total of 5 years at that original cost. They came back to us this year and they asked us if we wanted to continue. I had a long conversation with the water superintendent. I speak to him daily. We have a water committee made up of members of the village board, the town council, and residents. And we evaluated whether or not we should continue to do it. And we have decided we are not going to do it. And why is that? I mean, $5,000 isn't a lot of money, but a lot of our pleas and appeals to the DEC have fallen on deaf ears. And the amount of letters that have been written about our concerns, they've taken them under advisement, but it hasn't really changed anything. So right now, we're in a healthy situation. We can always go back and begin that process again, but I believe when the community that is drawing money from that well field connects to the aqueduct, this will be a moot point. That will be a backup source of water from them. Mike, am I correct in that, the well field? It'll be a backup source of water for them once they are to the aqueduct, which should happen when?
Well, that's the current intention. They should be connecting to the aqueduct this year, but they still don't have a way to filter the water. And without filtration, they can't use the water unless they get an avoidance from the EPA. And just to note that we've paid about $148,000 between the 4 municipalities and the Storm King Arts Center for this monitoring.
Got it. 148,000 across how many years?
Across those since 2017.
But who paid that? Because our end of it, the 2 years that I was mayor, our end of it was $5,000 a year. So.
Yeah, the initial outlay.
Oh, the initial outlay.
The initially outlay from each municipality was $34,500, with Storm King Arts Center kicking in $10,000.
That included the litigation.
This was all through Woodbury.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you for that update. Yeah, I didn't realize that. So anyway, I am going to, we're not passing a resolution. Joe, right, you said, I'm still gonna, am I gonna make a motion to not renew the contract? Or do I put that out there as an FYI to the board and say, unless someone has misgivings about it, we're just not gonna seek to renew it?
Well, I think that's the correct motion. It's just a consensus with the board. You're going to make a motion that the board will not be renewing the monitoring agreement.
I'd like to make a motion not to renew the contract to monitor the Woodbury Creek. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I will just say that the hydrologist did say, we've got 5 solid years of data that does show that in dry years, drawdown on that creek does actually affect the level of the water.
Well said.
And so we do have that. It's documented. We sent it to the DEC. The monitoring has done its job, at least in establishing that basic fact. So
Thank you. Well said, Bill. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Donahue Pavilion. I'm going to make a motion to award the bid to the lowest bidder, which was Nanini and Callahan Excavating Incorporated, for $34,500 to install a concrete pad, piers, and supply and install erosion control for the pad, which will ultimately seat the pavilion at Donahue Memorial Park. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Yes.
Counselor.
Dave, didn't we say today that it was not a formal bid, that it was a proposal? Yeah. So you're not accepting the lowest bid.
We're accepting one of the 3 quotes.
Correct.
Okay. Let me amend it to say, I'm going to make a motion that we award one of the 3 quotes we got, which was to Nanini and Callahan Excavating in the amount of $34,500. Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Land use permit renewal. I'm going to make a motion to authorize the water superintendent and the mayor to renew the village's land use permit with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. This permit is required to be renewed every 5 years. It'll be signed by myself and Water Superintendent Trainer. Mike, anything to add to that or any color to that for the trustees that they need to know?
Just to point out, this is our connection to the New York City Aqueduct over in Riley Road in New Windsor.
And the last time we actually drew water from the aqueduct was how many years ago?
November of 2020.
November 2020. All right. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Just, there's no cost to this, right? This is just.
There is no cost to it now.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sexual harassment policy. The village has I'm sorry.
Deferred.
Oh, that's what I'm going to say on that, because it is on the agenda, right, or no?
Yeah, it is.
It is. That's what I'm going to say. We are going to defer that. We have a sexual harassment policy in place, but we are going to allow council to take a look at some refinements.
Yes. Basically,
Revision, refinements.
New York, we have the policy in effect. The state has modified its state model policy. So now we'll proceed to revise our existing policy to conform with the state's revisions.
So that is going to be deferred until the August meeting, which is going to be, is it August 21st, Doris? August 21st, which I'll remind people is the combined work session and business meeting. There's only one meeting in July and August. We will discuss the sexual harassment policy then. All right, moving on to an authorization for an expenditure for Riverfest. So as everyone knows, Riverfest is a committee of the village. It has been going on for 26 years. It has actually been held for 24 years because there were 2 years due to COVID that we did not hold it in person. So it's actually been going back to 1998. So I am going to make a motion to authorize this village board to make a donation to Riverfest. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Expenditures for the July 4th event or Independence Day. I'm going to make a motion to authorize expenditures to the July 4th event. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to other business. Part-time building inspector position. Mr. Carmona and myself spoke this morning in regards to 2 applicants that have come in on, Manny, is this our second, third, or fourth canvas for part-time inspectors to help you out? The fourth one. So this one's going to be a winner. So anyhow, of the 2, Manny has settled on one that we're going to bring in to interview. Manny's going to meet with him first, and then bring him to meet with me, and then I'll discuss it with the board. I will just say that this person is a local Cornwall young adult, and if it works out, he or she is in the process of getting the certifications they need right now. They are a full-time firefighter in another municipality. We'll see if it works its way through the process, and we'll make an announcement after the interviews are done. So, next item of business. Proposed law restricting mini bike and ATV usage. I am generally opposed to making laws. I think we have too many. But to Mr. Joya's point earlier today, and the woman who was sitting in the front row here says, sometimes people just don't do what they're supposed to do. So there is a contentious relationship between 2 neighbors whose property are adjacent to each other. One of the neighbors has members of their family that ride a mini bike around a piece of property that is less than 2 acres big in the lower village. And that's as far as I'll go on that. Now, 2 years ago when I got this job and I thought that I could make everything work, I went and spoke to the person here that was involved and asked if there could be a reasonable accommodation because the people on the other side were looking to put their house on the market because they didn't want to live there anymore, and it turned into a legitimate, minus the shotguns, a legitimate Hatfield and McCoy situation with, all right, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to put my generator on. All right, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to gun the mini bike here. So after speaking to both parties, I got the one party to agree to only have their children ride the mini bike around the property on Saturday mornings for an hour and not before 10 o'clock in the morning. And for the better part of the last year and a half, they've adhered to that. Well, something more or less.
I can't believe I'm not the one that made the complaint.
Trust me, there are a number of,
I thought there's gotta be somebody else in this village that's totally.
well, there's a lot of people that will just say, it's just what I gotta deal with and what I gotta put up with. But,
Well, I used to say,
yeah, but this person, but there are other people also that live around there that feel the same way, they just haven't said something. So I reached out to this person, and this person ignored me. So as far as I'm concerned now, I'm taking the temperature of the board. We're not solving this tonight. But I asked Manny today to look up and find out what code we have for things like this. If you own 5 acres on the mountain and you have an ATV or dirt bike, I can understand an argument that you have enough property up there where you could do it and do it at the right time, not doing it at midnight and do it at the right time. If you live on a piece of property like mine, which is 1/4 of an acre, it's not fair to neighbors to have a dirt track in your yard and ride it around and do that. And I thought that I brokered a reasonable accommodation, hasn't gone there. What is our next step? Manny, explain to the board, after going through the code exhaustively today for me, what options do we have?
Well, the information that you gave me today, the inspection that I conducted, I went out to the site, took a look at it. The only thing we have right now is noise. It could be a noise complaint. There's nothing else.
And that requires you to be on duty at the time it's ongoing, and then to take a decibel meter and go up there and read the amount of decibels.
Or a police officer could do that and give me that report and I can act on that.
Got it. Again, as we're telling police officers to do less enforcement,
Right.
this is adding to that. All right, absent that, is there anything in the code, I know the answer, but for the board, is there anything in the code, as you went through it and looked to come at this from any different way, that would disallow somebody from riding a mini bike on their property in a cloistered community?
No.
Or clustered, not cloistered. Clustered.
No, sir.
Both, all right, all right.
I didn't find anything. I went thoroughly. It's nothing that addresses.
Okay. So absent, again, dispatching you or a police officer up there with a decibel meter, what options could the board have? Are there any? Can we restrict somebody from riding ATVs, you and I talked about wording today, and I know it's so important in the law, Joe. I was calling it a recreational vehicle, and Manny says, no, there's a specific meaning for recreational vehicle, and it does not, a mini bike or an ATV.
Around either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're not there.
Yeah.
Joe, what are your
Well, I know,
thoughts?
well, I know there are other communities that have laws restricting hours and usage of ATVs and, those kinds of vehicles.
Okay.
As a matter of zoning or something else.
Is this something that you could research for us, for communities similar to ours that would have an issue like this? Again, where you're talking about, most of the properties there are probably a half acre or smaller.
Well, I thought you told Manny to do it.
I told Manny to look at the code. I wanted you to
Oh,
tell me if there's any law. I mean, I can have.
Yeah, no, yes, there are obviously laws. I'll take a little survey, see if anything fits.
Manny, maybe you could do the same from the code end of it and see if there's any of your colleagues anywhere else that have experienced this and have figured out a way to deal with it.
Not necessarily with this type of vehicle, but with leaf blower, because of the noise, there is an ordinance out there.
I'm aware of those too, and I've heard those too, but I'm talking about this specific. We can get to leaf blowers. It's not the fall yet, but we can get to leaf blowers, but.
Can we restrict it to how many CCs the mini bike is? The size of
I
it?
think what you have to be concerned about there is that they've come out with electric bikes. So
Well, that's
more
fine,
and
they don't make any
more.
noise.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to exempt, you've got to exempt those. So
Yeah.
you can't, I don't think you can necessarily go by,
It's
well,
always-
the
That's a good
equivalent of
point.
CCs.
That's a good point.
Amps?
I mean, a Kawasaki KZ-125 is gonna make a lot more noise than, a little 50cc.
All right.
I
Can
know
you
I-
guys just look at
Yeah,
that and see,
yeah.
and then bring me a solution or something, because, generally speaking in this village, if you go and talk to people, they're reasonable. But sometimes, or they're just dug in and feel like, they should have a right to do that on their own property. So, I mean, you run into that, so.
I know we did this for one of my other municipalities probably about 10 years ago, so I'll go back and take a look at that. But Deputy Mayor Kane's correct. I mean, now with electric vehicles, there probably would have to be some kind of exemption. But I'll take a look and I'll give the board a survey.
All right. All right, next item of business. Okay, I asked on Sunday night, Mike, was it July 9th when the storm hit? On Sunday night, we had a number of cadets and soldiers that could not get back to West Point due to 9W being washed out and 218 being gone. One of the groups of soldiers, 82nd Airborne soldiers, all of them combat vets that were coming in to train the cadets, had to bail out of their truck after it shorted out when it underwent some of the flooding shortly before the big cave in there. And I spoke to Chief Quinn and spoke to Assistant Chief Trainer. My understanding was I thought the firehouse had bunks. I thought that our firefighters, when they get called in on something like this, a natural disaster or something like this, state of emergency, there's a place where, you can put, firefighters like SWAT guys down on sleep shifts. They don't. Probably something we should look at, because something like that would have been a perfect opportunity for us to say to people that couldn't make it out of Cornwall, of which there were a number. I mean, of the 6 I knew about, And I'd like to thank Trustee Carnwright for housing the 4 soldiers. All it took was a phone call, and he's like, yep, bring them on over. That night, I heard stories of 3 other families that did the same thing. And my thought was, wow, I mean, we have a firehouse. That should have been the perfect place to say, hey, we'll just give them our bunks there. So I asked Captain Trainer, not Assistant Chief Trainer, to look into it. What would it take? What would the space requirement be? What would the cost be? How does it work in other volunteer firehouses? Because this is not a full-time department where you go, oh, the NYPD, they got bunk rooms, or the FDNY, but that's not available here. We should have something like that. That's just my thought. Does anybody on the board think differently or think it's a good idea, bad idea, or?
Good idea.
Yeah, because even at Munger, they opened up Munger to
Yep.
use it as a shelter, but it wasn't really, housed for it. Yeah, there was enough.
Well, that
One
was
person
something.
slept on the couch.
That was something, and I do want to say this too. I said it to the board earlier. I do believe that we take our OEM coordinator, our Office of Emergency Management Coordinator, Kurt Hahn, for granted. It's a unpaid job, essentially a volunteer. He gets a vehicle. And it's an unpaid job, and watching him and having been in the crisis response business for most of my adult life in various forms, I was quite impressed to see him set up shop here and do his work. Calm in the chaos, which is what you have to be, but knowing what to do, who to call, having an answer for every question I had or that Supervisor Wojciechowski had. And if he didn't have it, he knew how to go get that answer. And it was a real treat to see him work. And I think we need to appreciate folks like that. But I said the same thing to him. We don't have emergency places to bunk. And he said, well, we've got Munger, but we can't call it a shelter. By specific language, we can only call it a reception center. So you have couches, you have, Reader's Digest there, plenty of those, but there's not, you could charge your phone, you could get some water, but essentially it wasn't, and again, the storm came in out of nowhere, truly, but just to have something like that, I've asked Captain Trainer to take a look at what it would take at the firehouse, and maybe we make that place an emergency shelter in the event that we do have a displaced family because of a mudslide or a flash flood or something like that. So, sir, Chief.
Captain Trainer has written a one-pager for you. You should have it in the mail shortly.
Pagers.
But in an emergency situation, the firefighters are gonna be responding to an emergency. The firehouse is not an ideal place to bring people in an emergency. This room would be more appropriate than a firehouse.
Perhaps a school.
Yeah. What about the possibility of outfitting the old water department on Maple?
That would take a lot to retrofit that for sleeping in and that kind of stuff. It's basically storage.
Supplies, Rich. Munger needs the supplies, that's all.
But Charlie, what you're talking about is just putting like army cots in here, right? And you're saying something temporary like that. All right, so you're against that idea, but you're not against that idea, say, for firefighters.
I think a bunk room is very appropriate, but keep in mind that our firehouse was built in 1904 for a horse to live in. There's a lot more that's needed before we put bunk rooms into the existing structure.
Understood. Manny?
And make sure we got code requirements to comply with to use for sleeping purposes.
We have what now?
Code requirements.
What are those?
Although it's for emergency situation, we still gotta meet those requirements.
Manny, you know how to just, bring it down.
Code
guy with the dark cloud over his head all the time. Can you bring me good news?
When we set up the cots though during an emergency, Manny's gonna have to come up from Rockland County to go check on them.
That's right.
We're all good.
Make sure we're not overcrowded.
All right, let's move this on, guys. Okay, Bill, real quick, because so we can move this along, the Donahue Committee report, and then I also added this because I have put you in charge of this, and this was something I wanted long before I just bought a hybrid Jeep, but in looking at putting charging stations in the village, potentially one here, one maybe in the municipal lot at the bandstand, and one maybe down at Donahue Memorial Park for people that do have, EVs or hybrids. So Bill, quick dump on Donahue, and then give me an idea on where we stand on looking into, because the town is already moving forward on the vehicle charging stations. I don't want to be left in the dust on this. I want to make sure that we have a plan in place.
The chairman of the Donahue Committee informs me that the garden is fully subscribed and it looks fantastic. People are growing a ton of vegetables and flowers. No flood damage at the farm.
Amazing.
He also gave me some comment about the waterfront, but it's very well covered. And they are planning to install I can't call it a permanent water source, but basically there is the well that's there is delivering, especially with the recent rain. And what they have been doing is filling water barrels there, just filling them up and then turning the well off, and everybody dunks their water can in the barrels. The well does replenish even during the dry weather. It was replenishing after about 8 hours overnight. So they have some water tanks they've received, sort of extra water tanks they've received from the water department. They're going to install a solar pump that will solar powered pump that'll charge up, and then it'll simply fill those water tanks. There'll be a float in it so that it can automatically fill. There'll be an overflow on it in case the pump runs too fast. So it'll be a sort of temporary, permanent solution to the water issue without having to install water on site. And then on the EVs, is there a comment or a question?
No,
From the superintendent?
I'm glaring at the highway superintendent.
Before we go to
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get to you after that. Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah.
Don't touch that, Dave.
Jesus, are you kidding me?
Keep it cold.
No, he's turned his off because Jim Kane, who's got more clothing on in here than anyone, is chilly. Not even Doris is cold, and she's always cold, but you're...
Manny's got his winter coat on.
Manny's got a winter coat on. He's from the Dominican Republic. He's already told you that. Come on. He's from the Caribbean. Jeez.
Donahue issue. Hit it.
Donahue issue. I didn't have a chance because I haven't been doing anything the last week or so.
Except fooling with my thermostat.
We had talked about the road in there. Here is off of the state contract. That's what we can do. That would be the road going in, the parking lots in the rear, Mary Donahue's driveway. I say Mary Donahue's. That's doing a oil and treatment double course. So it'll be sealed and it won't turn into mud, and we'd be able to plow it in the winter.
All right.
And
And
Dave,
it'll
this is
look
a,
Now.
rustic because it looks like an old oil and chip road.
Okay.
I can channel our partners.
I was going to say,
Just do have to share it with them. And
I am 100%, because I'm on their side on this, and I am a tree hugger, but I'm on their side on this for our equipment not to be destroyed and for us to be able to keep that trailhead open, serviceable, and maintained. And I'm not going to have our plows going in there and being destroyed. And I think there's a way to do this, as Dave, as I asked him and has done here, to do this where it doesn't look like you're paving the concrete jungle in Manhattan. Bill, as he just pointed out, you've got to take this back to Scenic Hudson. They're always going to start at no, and you're going to have to figure out a way to get them to yes.
We're not gonna be able to plow that road this winter.
As it
It
is.
took a beating last year, it beat up our equipment last year.
Yeah.
And
I think,
especially if it's not frozen.
Plus, this'll regrade the road, right?
What's that?
It's gonna regrade it too.
Well, we would, the road would be graded.
Yeah,
before this
properly.
treatment is put on.
Dave, describe the material. Rich was just asking, what's the material that's used for this?
yeah, no.
Well, it's always petroleum
Oil
somewhere.
and chip, yeah.
Can we talk about it tomorrow?
Of course, oil and chip, one layer, chip it, hit it again, another layer of chips on top.
It'll look
Give you
nice
about
too.
an inch surface to work with.
Yeah.
And that will hold up to car traffic, it's not gonna hold up to truck traffic, but we don't need truck traffic.
We don't. And for people that say don't do anything there, if you walk from the entrance off of Bayview to the barn, that road was paved at one point in time. There are chunks of asphalt there, and it was paved. We got to figure out a solution, and we've got to, obviously, Scenic Hudson has the right of way there in deciding what we can and cannot do. But I agree with Dave. for us to maintain that property now, we got to come to some type of solution.
Spend that money in repairs.
All right, okay.
Well, we are, Mr. Mayor, we are in discussions with Scenic Hudson right now concerning the management agreement.
Yes.
So if I can just get a copy either from Dave or someone.
Bill, give that one to Bill. Yeah, here's an extra one right there. Yeah.
Good job.
Perfect.
I can't bend over, so.
All right.
Broken leg.
Trustee Brain, you done?
The EVs.
You're done on Donahue, moving on to EV charging station. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you keep it.
I had a couple of discussions with Real Term Energy. They sent me an SOW for locations that I identified. I gave them 2 options at Donahue Farm, 1 option behind the Village Hall here, and 1 at the municipal lot. And they don't have quotes yet. They've sent me a scope of work saying.
You meant
are these
Donahue
the
Memorial Park, not Donahue Farm.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, Donahue Memorial Park. I'm going to meet a fella from Central Hudson on Wednesday morning and just go to each spot to make sure that the specs that they laid out that are necessary to install these units are available at each of those sites.
Do you know how the town was able to fund this? Was this off of grant money or did they budget it?
So Central Hudson has a grant. It's called, and Dave's going to say it before I can, but it is called
forget the name
the
of it.
something ready. It's like Ever Ready or the I'm
EV
sorry,
Ready?
EV Ready. The NIPA guy knows, but he's not allowed to say anything.
A lot of energy going on around here.
So, yes, the EV Ready program is a grant program that utilities are able to, they have funding that they're able to use to build new installations. Presumably, it's partly because it's in their interest, given that it's new electric business. So it can cover up to the entire cost of the installation.
So we're gonna get something.
That'd be amazing. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And it's a fee-for-service terminals too, so people have to, download an app and tap their card or whatever and pay.
If they can
Usually
get
it's a
their
modest
parking
amount.
permit that way, they can do this.
Yes, exactly. So I should have more information once I confirm all the specs with Central Hudson. I'll send them back to Real Term Energy. At that point, so this week, I will have something to share with the rest of the board. I think that what Real Term needs to hear from us is, yes, get us real quotes for what you've laid out here. I do have to understand and confirm it doesn't rise to the, I don't think it rises to the $35,000 threshold in terms of bidding, but it does definitely exceed $5,000. So I'm not really sure what we have to do with Real Term to make sure that we're working with, that we get, that whatever they're proposing to do, that we're making sure that it complies with procurement rules and law.
Dave, can you help him on that as far as bid specs and how that works?
Real Term Energy is a company that comes in and does a turnkey solution, installing someone else's original equipment for EV charging stations. So they come in and do the whole thing. They also have a software program that you use to monitor the traffic to them and the usage, and they do the maintenance and all of that stuff as well. They've done it for the town. I was unable to find out, the town's been busy, and so I haven't gotten back from them what their process was and whether it was sole source or if they were able to find, if they got 3 quotes for that kind of service. I couldn't find anything in simple desk research that offered the same turnkey level of service. I couldn't find any other provider. They were all sort of equipment manufacturers. Trustee Gaylord was kind enough to send me the one that they have at the Nissan dealership, but that's the manufacturer itself. EVgo is one of the makers. So these guys can install whichever one is the right one for us. And I couldn't find another, but that was just me Googling and looking around and
Give me a
stuff,
day or two, I get emails constantly from these companies.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I'll see what I got.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Anything
Sounds
else,
like,
Bill?
sounds like that might be based upon the cost. It might actually be a formal bid though. If it's gonna be 75, is that what you said?
No. I said I don't
Said
think
between
it is.
5 and 35.
Yeah, I don't think
Oh.
it goes over the 35 threshold.
Okay, misheard. But if it's 35 or close to it, it may,
Do we know where the town is planning on putting theirs? Is one at Rings Pond and one at Town Hall? Is that,
I think it's just town hall. I think.
it's just Town Hall? I thought they got 2.
I'll ask Josh.
Okay. All right, no worries. Good. I'm glad we're just moving on that. It's something that we'll figure out a way to get money to pay for, but we should have.
And they are installing theirs in the town in the next week or two.
All right, I'll be a little jealous. All right, proposed management agreement, the Stoll Trailhead. Where do we stand on that? We're still,
We've been I've been in contact with the trailhead people. We have the agreement.
Okay.
And actually now I'll raise this as an issue.
You want to be the one? All right, get on it.
Well, when I did I say I?
Yeah.
I thought I said we.
Okay.
The management agreement, did we send them our red line?
No, I did not.
Okay, but we have it.
all right.
It's redlined. We're going to send it.
All right, sounds good. All right, next items are just some quick FYIs. Okay, I spoke to the New York Ford grant people, and I refer to them as that, but it's actually New York State's Department of State, and got us an additional week extension. So, project bids were supposed to be submitted by June 21st. We appealed after the storm on July 9th to push it till July 28th. And today, I requested that we have until August 4th. And why is that? Just to give people more time to put together their project applications. Just go to cornwallnyf.com. Cornwallnyf for New York Forward.com. Every question, answer you could have. They have workshops where you can actually interact with them, engage with them, ask them questions. You can submit questions to them, and it's really a lot of good information in regards to the process. The local planning committee meeting for the New York Ford grant, the next one is going to be, what does that say, June? Should be July 28th. I'll have to double check that, but I think it's July 28th between 5:30 and 7:30. It will not be here. We flip-flop them. This one will be at Town Hall. I'm not sure if it's going to be down where they have their meetings, because they did take water there, but it'll be at Town Hall. It might get moved to Munger. I'll put that out and make sure everybody knows. I have a core team meeting with the core team folks on Wednesday. Anything new comes out of it, I will put that out. But we are getting very close. Remember, November 1st, we have to have our strategic investment plan on how we're going to spend $4.5 million here. So we've got some good ideas. Yes. Oh, yeah, that wasn't on there. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, Dave, Mike, we didn't do those two positions, right? Okay, so we need to. So, give me the verbiage. I'm gonna make a motion to post a position in the Department of Public Works, an internal posting for the position of Senior Motor Equipment Operator. I'm going to ask that the board authorize the DPW Superintendent Dave Howerson to do so. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. We've obviously already spoken to Dave about this, but we did need to pass a resolution. And now I'm going to make a motion to authorize the Water Superintendent, Michael Trainer, to post an internal posting for the position of Heavy Equipment Operator. May I have a second? Second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, Jim, I forgot that. Okay, next item of business, the Village Board Business Meeting and Work Session combined, Monday, August 21st, 7 p.m. here. The Fireman's Fair starts Wednesday, July 19th, and goes till Sunday, July 22nd. I'm sorry, Saturday, July 22nd, and the fire chief has promised me that the fireworks are muffled and you will not hear them. You'll just see them. All right, I'm looking forward to that. Mike, how are you doing finding poor schlubs to sit in the Dunkin' tank?
I have one.
You have one. Well, I wonder, leadership by example is very important to me. Who would that one person that signed up for that root canal with no Novocaine?
That would be yourself.
Well, thank you. All right. So, Mike,
But you also have several demands.
Oh, I had a lot of demands. I want fleece towels. Wait till you see what I'm asking for in my dressing room.
A wetsuit.
And I just
And
want
no water.
an easier way to get. I want an easier way to get out of the tank. You put us in there for an hour. By the time you get out, I'm in like splints for a week after that. They don't make it easy.
You were a ranger, weren't you?
Yeah.
A Power Ranger.
You do understand the difference between past tense and present tense, right? Past tense, yes. All right, so that is the 19th to the 22nd. I'm going to encourage the trustees who are able to, because Deputy Mayor Kane has an operation coming up, and he's moved it and scheduled it the week of the Fireman's Fair, and I'm starting to think he ain't as dumb as I thought he was. So, all right, I need help with that.
I credit the dunk tank with giving me the hip arthritis that prevents me from taking part this year.
Notice.
He's putting in a workman's comp claim.
I was in and out of there a lot last week.
Yes, we were. All right, the Sergeant Pena walkout. So walkout is a very important thing in law enforcement. It's on your last day, your last tour, you walk out, and all current members of the police department in uniform come out and give you your final salute as you walk out. Hence, it's called the walkout. That is going to be scheduled. Everybody in this room knows Johnny Pena and what he means to this village. I don't think there's a part. He's one of the few people that I know in this world that I don't think you could find someone to say a bad word about him. Really integral to this village and just part of the fabric here. So his walkout will be July 26th at 3 p.m. Members of the public are invited to that. You can come out. It'll be here in the back parking lot right outside of the police station. And I believe afterwards, there might be a gathering at the Storm King Lounge to thank him there as well. So John he'll be leaving the sergeant position, but he will be coming back to the village as a part-time officer. He just won't be a sergeant anymore, and he won't be working the coveted B line, which is 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So, but anyhow, July 26th, 3 p.m. The next ethics board meeting, July 19th, and I'd like to thank our 3 ethics board members, John Ross, Brad Lavallee, and Brandy Schaefer McClendon, because that is probably the most unsexiest of committees that you can be on, yet one of the most important. They go over our financial disclosure forms and generally keep people between the white lines, because a lot of mistakes that are made are innocent mistakes, but sometimes they need to be pointed out, and that's what their job is. So, Joe, are you going to be attending that?
Yes, I am.
All right, July 19th, 7 p.m. It is open to the public, correct?
Sure.
It'll be here, so if you wish to come and see that, it'll be July 19th at 7 p.m. The Cornwall Central School District Community Coalition meeting, August 15th, is going to be held here in the Village Boardroom. You're probably thinking yourself, first, what is the Cornwall Central School District Community Coalition meeting? And second, why is it here? So the first one was 3 or 4 months ago. Myself and the supervisor attended, the police chiefs attended, various members of teachers' organizations, student organizations, and it was an effort to bring community members together with school leaders in an effort to be more connected and to discuss trends. And obviously, as parents, we're always the last to know what the trends are, because the kids know about the trends when they're in the 3rd grade. So it's just an opportunity to open up a dialogue. They're going to rotate those meetings and ask me about having one of the meetings here, and I said absolutely, because I think there should be a meeting in this room every night. It's a community building and a community room. So it'll be that night. It is open to the public. Anybody that wishes to attend, it will be here that night. I believe it starts at 6, but don't quote me on that. It's not on here. It might be 7, but it'll be posted on the school's website, and I'll double check maybe and put it out in the mayor's message. Okay, last thing before I go to board comments and we wrap things up. Last opportunity for public comment. Does anybody here feel like, Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Joya. Yes, absolutely. Ms. Gazda, you'll be next. Yes.
I guess it was about 2 months ago. I wasn't at the meeting, but I read it in the local that Mike Traynor had reported that the water department would need a $2.5 million filtration facility to filter out elevated levels of PFAS, right? And I'm assuming that also would include BlackRock, or maybe not now, but given the way this forever chemical seems to permeate everywhere, it's probably only a matter of time. And then, so I read that and I said, oh yeah, okay, $2.5 million, and that you were
doing applications for grants for that. Okay. And then it was like a week or 10 days later, there was a front page article in the New York Times reporting a settlement between 3M, a producer of PFAS, and cities and towns across the United States, settlement for 10.3 B for billion dollars to pay for the remediation and the damages caused by these chemicals. There was a lesser settlement for DuPont, and I read that and I ended up thinking, why do we have to apply for a grant when this company has essentially admitted their responsibility to clean this up? And why shouldn't we be getting online to get that money rather than apply for a grant or bond or hold a bake sale? I mean, why does that have to be on us when the polluter has actually admitted in a court of law that they're responsible for the cleanup, and 10.3 billion for 3M, and I think it was 2 point something billion for DuPont. Now, I don't know the details about Stewart's PFAS, because I assume that's the contamination that we're experiencing, but who knows how that all works. I know that Newberg has an ongoing suit against, I guess it's DuPont. I don't know the details of that, but they have an active suit because of their pollution. I know Harriman has an active suit, and I would ask that the board and council consider joining in their suit so that we're on the line, we're on the list to get some of that money. These companies probably don't pay their fair share of taxes anyway, so ultimately we end up, it's all on us anyway, but it really sticks in my craw that we have to hold a bake sale to basically clean up their mess. The day of the terrible storm, there was a Democratic fundraiser, and I was able to, and I had spoken to the mayor about this, but that day I was able to speak to Assemblyman Ekus, Senator Skoufis, Congressman Ryan, and so they all know.
Yeah.
I presented this, what I'm telling you, I presented it to each of them. Senator Skoufis did say that the municipality needs to take the active step of attaching itself to a lawsuit, or else file a lawsuit themselves. So it's incumbent on the village or the village water supply to join in a lawsuit with a currently existing suit against whether it's DuPont, whether it's 3M, or whoever else. But there's a pot of money out there, and we should be on the list to get that money. Shouldn't be a bake sale.
Don't the municipalities have to show harm before
Well,
they can
but
join
I mean,
in?
I'm predicating it on that report now, so I don't have a lot of details, but just that Mike's asking for $2.5 million for a filtration plant. So obviously he's seen elevated levels of PFAS. And so I think that puts us in.
More so that the state is becoming more stringent with what you're allowed to have. Mike?
Yeah, the threshold.
Both the wells and the Black Rock supply have PFAS in them, but currently they're below the maximum contaminant level, well below.
Minimum.
What's that?
They're below the minimum.
Right.
No, they're below the maximum.
Oh, okay.
The minimum is.
The maximum allowable.
The
4 parts per trillion is the
no,
minimum.
currently it's 10 parts per trillion. They're looking to change it to 4 parts per trillion. So we're looking to get in the game to get this additional funding from the state that they're putting out there for the PFAS treatments. Now understand that the contaminant goal is 0.0 parts per trillion, but there's no laboratory that can analyze it that low. So the goal that their people are looking for, we can't even analyze for. So that's why we're trying to get ahead of the curve rather than staying behind it. You know, And to Rick's point about Stewart Airport and whatnot, I've been in contact with the DEC about that, and they claim that we're a different drainage basin from them, that contamination has nothing to do with ours. And for the life of me, I can't understand why we have it in Black Rock, but we do, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay.
Joe, is that something that you could look into for us as well? Is that something that we should be
I think it's a great
enjoining?
idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, I mean, I'm not really sure how that settlement was structured, but sometimes if you have such a large fund
Yeah.
that's created, even though you're not in the lawsuit, you may be able to join or you may be able to seek, contribution from the fund.
We can't get any money if we
So,
don't ask for it.
Yeah, no, I
Right.
think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
I do have one more thing, if I could. It's totally, sorry, I'll sit down.
No, that's okay. Mrs. Gazda, and then we'll come back to you, all right? Okay,
Now,
yeah.
Rick.
Yeah.
I haven't been here for a while.
You're making up for it.
Are we going to stand in line here? Barbara Gazda, Homeland. It sounds like we're well on our way to a second pavilion at the waterfront. What kind of restrictions do we put on those rentals? How many cars can a group bring in? How many people? Do we do any of that? Because
didn't
if
do any
we
of it yet.
don't,
We haven't done it yet.
where is this going? Could we have two simultaneous events down there and have and the residents have no place to park on any given day?
Yeah, I think we would handle it the same way we do with usage of the shelter, which obviously is the gazebo at the north end of the park, where you can reserve it, and it comes with a certain number of parking spaces.
That's
I
my
believe it's
question.
10.
Yeah.
And to Dave's point, yes, that is something that we are, as a board, are going to look at is, how do we do this? We want it to be open to the public, but what if somebody comes down and says, I'm having a 50th anniversary and I'm bringing all my, or Cornwall High School says we want to do, we've got to come up with a policy like, how do we do that? Like, who do we allow to? When is it open to anybody? And when is somebody allowed to reserve it?
And it begs another question: who's the public? This is those of us who live here are the residents. And since when do visitors or whomever take precedent on us? And as we talk about other things here, sometimes it's the visitors who are becoming the wanted instead of looking out for those of us who pay the bills here. And who really value this community, and we don't, will we share it? Yeah, but you know what? We don't want them to rank ahead of us.
I got you. We do some things like, we have a tiered system for parking permits. But when it comes to usage down there, it is first come, first serve. And the state is very adamant. A lot of the things, the grants that we've gotten for the waterfront are contingent upon it being for visitors as well.
And
so
you
they
know what?
don't.
Visitors can buy permits.
Yep.
I mean, that kind of opens that door, I think, and meets that need. But as far as I would say to all of you on this board, look out for us.
Fair.
Don't forget us.
All right. You had an alibi, sir.
I'm going to get there really quick.
All right.
Okay.
I'm missing Golden Girls right now.
Okay, so
dinner?
the U.S. Department of Transportation, under the Federal Railroad Administration, has an allowance for municipalities to institute quiet zones for rail travel, and within their borders to not have horns sound, as long as each railroad crossing has a gate, an approved gate, and there's certain signage that indicates that there will be no horn sound. This has been in effect since 2006, and the town, if I'm not mistaken, Congers in Rockland instituted a quiet zone within their borders. And maybe it has something to do with the golf course there. I'm not sure what their reason was, but they successfully instituted a quiet zone. So they have special signage specifically for this purpose, and every railroad crossing has an approved gate, which I believe we do. We fall within the criteria, and it just seems that since we're tying into the New York Forward, we're trying to make Donahue Park a place that you'd like to stay, and those horns we all know, and now if we're talking about a pavilion, we're potentially going to have larger gatherings there, and that's going to be very close to the railroad tracks. And this seems to be an option. It's legally binding. It's coming from the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's a federal program, and obviously it would need to be at the federal level to deal with an entity like CSX. Yeah. So I think it's something we should definitely pursue, because if we cannot have horn sound within our borders, I think we'd have a lot of happy people.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. All right, anybody else from the public for public comment? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go around the board. Trustee Brain, anything?
Just first of all, I was out of town during the flooding and felt guilty about it, but was also out of town. So I just wanted to thank everybody, the DPW, the fire department, all the first responders who were out, and my fellow trustees who went door to door, checking on people. I don't imagine that the town has previously had the extensive damage to 12 houses. The village has had the extensive damage to 12 or more residences in one go. Even during Hurricane Irene, I had water in my basement for Hurricane Irene, but so thank you to everybody. I think it was heroic and really great that everybody was here to support the residents, as Ms. Gazda is concerned about. So thank you for that. As for train horns, I do know that James Skoufis, Senator Skoufis, had commissioned a noise study or some kind of study a couple of years ago. So I'll check on that. But I'll as a very first step, I'll text him and see what he says.
All right,
about
thank you, Bill.
And that's it for me. River Avenue, I just think that you've all presented the case for slowing people down and making sure that there's visibility, and I think that all the solutions that you mentioned could form part of a comprehensive review of that road and understand what things we're able to do. So thanks for bringing it to our attention. And that's it for me.
All right, Trustee Gaylord.
Just one quick question. What, they put in level 2 or level 3 chargers in town?
Level 2.
Level 2.
Yeah, the fast charge DC ones, the cost jumps up to 6 figures.
Yeah. So not that
It takes a while to charge on a level 2.
Not that I want to talk about my hybrid again.
It's to top off. It's not for a
But
real
since you brought it up,
zero.
if I plug my hybrid in at night, overnight on a 110, it takes about 12 hours. I get 28 miles on that charge. If I buy for $600 a fast charger, I can do the same thing in 2 hours. So it takes me about 12 hours, gives me about 28 miles around town.
How much is the charger?
It's $600 for the supercharger. Okay. The regular charger comes with the Jeep.
Okay.
So, all right. Anything else? Trustee Carnwright.
No, just thanks to DPW, did a great job. Was able to ride around and see most of the sites today, and obviously there's a lot of work to be done on the end of Boulevard, but Mountain Road, who knows?
Yeah. All right.
Hopefully we get money.
Deputy Mayor Kane.
I second what everyone else said here, and to the people on River Ave, thank you for bringing it up. Second, thanks for your patience in advance. We will get there. Yeah. And for the rest of
They're all invited to sit on our porch and have a beer and see what we're talking about. The radar gun.
And thanks to the village residents for their patience during the storm and afterwards. And that's all I have.
Yeah, appreciated you guys coming and sitting through the meeting and adding input, and this is what makes local governance important, because it's your friends and neighbors and people you see all the time. So thank you for that. Thank you for all the suggestions tonight. Lastly, like I said earlier, 11 o'clock, Governor Hochul is going to be in Highland Falls, and I'm hoping to have some good news after that, as good a news as I can possibly have. So with that said, any other alibis?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. All right, keep in mind, the mics are still on until we get this shut down, so watch your mutterings. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Watch your mutterings. So, did Abby do this, or do you? Because like, these have to be added up.
Yeah,
and then
Abby
can-
did that.
Okay, yeah, that's.
Or Gabby, yeah.
Okay, Abby, I meant Gabby. And then there was a couple of things.
no,
That's all right,
on
we'll get it. They were small and they were minor, and I thank you
Yeah,
for
they're long.
your first meeting. We got through it, and you can tell Jean that your first meeting went 3 hours, and she's gonna go.
There's
2 gates at each.
Did you show where she has to go?
Closing the River Road from Jim's Road down. You would close that. So
the
you
train
could
is-
only go out one way. No, you could only go out one way.
So to make it
Yeah.
comply with
Yep. Very complicated. By the way, Jim, that study and all that on the railroad, on the no sound